Trump definitely wants to win because this is a majority report. We're gonna watch the Sam Seder annihilation tour in a little bit. I saw bits and pieces of it early this morning. I saw that he put the fucking beanie on, which is so sick. I was a little confused. I don't know if it's their main channel or not, but like I was a little confused with like how little Tim's
people are already
live concurrent viewership looked like. And I don't know if it's because they just didn't want to watch their favorite beanie boy get absolutely destroyed by my real Uncle Sam. I've accepted Kamala will win, which makes me worry because these people will not listen to the uncommitted movement or anyone who cares about Gaza. There's a current effort by progressives to force a vote on troops leaving the region that many in this squad, of course not AOC, are threatening to do. Big dog, are we talking about the Trump Epstein tapes? Oh shit, you're right, dude. What the fuck? I can't believe I forgot to add that on. Okay. Yes, dude. Yes. That's crazy. That is the real October, November surprise, I guess, technically. That shit is like, yeah, bro, there's actual tapes. Like there's Trump Epstein tapes. We'll get to it in a second, but it's like Michael Wolff must have been real close to Epstein to get 100 hours of tape. Yeah, I don't know how he does it, man. I don't know how he does it. Like Michael Wolff never ceases to surprise me because like in many ways, like he is a fabulist, right? He definitely is a fabulist. So you can't really do that when you are supposed to be like a serious journalist. He also is like obviously a very self-interested guy, right? Like he will always withhold like information that would be good for the public to know until the most opportune moment. Okay. And this is Michael Wolff's books. So you will understand why I was like psyops happening left and right, it seems. But we're going to start out with Pimpool getting absolutely shellacked by Uncle Sam. Okay.
6 hours tonight.
Well, I'm saying, is your baby born already?
No. Oh, coming soon.
I'm talking about when your child
coming soon. Bro is announcing like a fucking album release.
Yeah, well, I mean, what little sleep I already get probably will be less.
All right, well, there you go.
Right on, man. So we'll start light. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, the election is Tuesday, but people are already voting.
No, wait. We got to talk about what am I doing here?
Well, sure. I was going to start light, but you can go with whatever you want.
No, I mean, it's light to me. But like, what? I thought I was banned. Didn't you say I was banned and blacklisted?
Maybe. I don't know the specifics. You have to. There's something to that effect.
I can send you a link. But I got I teed it up here.
It's hard for me to remember verbatim everything I said, but
what do I got here?
I would say.
Oh, I mean, you pretty specifically banned.
Did I say no Sam Seder at all?
Well, I think so. Here, wait a second.
Sam Seder's blacklisted by a lot of podcasts.
Yeah. Did I say us?
I'm not exaggerating. This is not a joke. Yes, there are many large podcasts that have outright said they will never work with him, and it has nothing to do with being afraid to debate him. Sam Seder's off the list. This guy is a manipulative, lying con man.
I mean, that's pretty strong stuff.
My confusion comes from, did I say I would never have you on?
I don't have anything to do with him. And that's why Sam Seder makes all these videos, and he focuses on drama. I mean, the man's obsession with Dave Rubin is laughable.
I agree with that to this day.
Oh, no, I actually, I have a
did I say
real reason for that.
Did I say,
of course.
I say I would never bring you on?
Oh, yeah, you did.
Okay, I might have.
I don't know if I have that specific video teed up. I might, though.
I may have. I usually, if I get like heated or something, but I tend not to be as definitive on things like this.
Well, it wasn't just that one time, too. When you went on Patrick Bet-David's show, you said the same thing.
Well, but it's true.
What's true?
There are a lot of big shows that have blacklisted you.
Oh, I have no doubt.
It's not about you, nobody wanting to debate you. I mean, the first thing I asked was like, let's talk about the issues, and you immediately pulled up drama. It's
not drama. I mean, I think everybody wants to know. It's like a weird. If you, I used to be a script writer, and if you put a loaded gun in the first scene, and you don't resolve it, people are going to be distracted. So this way we can just deal with this, get that out of the way, and then move on to stuff that is more, I think, like substantive.
Yeah. But that's it, right? It's not my business to tell other shows that have brought it up. But
No, I'm not concerned about other shows. I know why. I'm just curious, what am I doing here?
what are you doing here?
Yeah.
I decided to have you on. I don't know. I figured there were probably misconceptions you had about me. I think that a lot of what you think about what I say comes from clips and not the actual show. So there's like...
I don't really have conceptions of you.
This started because you said something that was untrue about my position on the death penalty. And I was like, I think Sam saw a clip that someone pulled out of context and didn't actually hear like my 2-hour diatribe on death
no, I don't. I think actually what I was talking about, I don't think I ever said whether you believe in the death penalty or not. I mean,
you cited a quote where you said that I said something like...
I cited a quote, or did I play a video?
At the beginning of a video, Tim Pool agrees that people who commit treason should get the death penalty, which is...
Is that right? Do you have the video? You must have the video. No? Oh, wait a second.
And I just went, holy crap. And
let me see if I got it, because I'm pretty sure I remember this. It was in the context of you suing Kamala Harris.
And so,
you were on with Laura Loomer.
Right.
And you said the words.
Here we go.
People who get the death penalty, people who commit treason should get the death penalty.
What's the context of that sentence?
What's the context of that sentence?
Right. So there's a clip that's 5 seconds long.
Oh, no, but I watched the whole rest of it. Like, I know you went back and forth, but it was so weird because you should really, if you can find this and put this up, because what I found fascinating about it was that you literally did say on multiple times in that going back and forth, because apparently what happened is you got in trouble at one point with, I don't know, some streaming service about people calling for the death penalty or whatever it was. I don't know the background of that.
YouTube says you can't call for the death penalty as a legal mechanism.
Okay. And so she brought up, I think these people committed treason. They should get the death penalty. And you said...
Well, I don't know if she said, I think
I don't care what she said, really, for this sake. But I'm quite sure you said, if you commit treason, you should get the death penalty. Now,
what words are you missing from that sentence? Because it sounds like you just heard a clip.
No. I watched the whole thing.
Okay, well then,
at one point afterwards,
let's pause. Let's pause.
You said if you commit treason, you should get the death penalty, and you have been caught committing treason. Have you reconsidered your stance on capital punishment?
We'll break this down. Is it currently codified in law that if you commit treason, the penalty is death?
What do you mean by codified?
Like, is U.S. law states that the penalty for treason is death?
Not necessarily, but it is one.
It is, right. The penalty for treason is death.
What is the penalty for murder?
It varies.
It can be the death penalty.
Exactly.
So it's the exact same dynamic as treason.
Yes. Oh. So if we're talking about, in that context, people levying...
Tim Pool, why are you talking about leniency in sentencing with a man who has consistently gone to the tort conference for the past decade for fun? Are you insane? Like, this, you're talking to a man who lives and dies by the tort. Okay? That is what he does for fun. Like, this is not a normal person. Okay? He reads Social Security reports for fun on his off time. This is what he does for fun. It makes no sense to me, okay? I at least watch anime in the off season when I'm not fucking, when I'm not like covering the news or reading the news. Like, at least I have like some fun things that I do. Sam Seder's idea of fun is homework. Okay? Like sometimes I'll go on vacation with my family and I'll still stream there, right? And I'll care about like the local politics of the area that I go to, and it'll be fun to see like a unique perspective. Once again, repeating, Sam Seder's idea of fun is going to the tort conference. Tort, a wrongful act or an infringement of a right other than under contract, leading to a civil legal liability.
war against the United States, to which I said, I don't believe any of these people committed treason.
Correct.
Sedition would be trying to undermine or cause damage to the government.
Correct.
Treason.
That's not the issue.
Right. And so the context of that conversation is, one, I don't agree with the death penalty. And in no circumstances.
But you did say the words. If you committed treason, you should get the death penalty.
Okay. So once again, do you not understand?
Would you agree if someone commits murder, they should get the death penalty?
No.
I agree with that.
Right. And
But you did say if they commit treason, they should get the death penalty.
So if we're talking about the penalty for levying war against a country, whether you want it to or not, if a judge sentences someone to death, should they get the death penalty?
If a judge, I don't think people should get the death penalty under any circumstances.
If someone is shooting at another person, should they be shot at and killed?
If someone's shooting at another person, should they be shot at and killed?
If someone is committing an act of violence and actively, is it within the legal rights of a person to return with lethal?
I like that Tim Pool's like a legal process in which there's an entire investigation conducted, a prosecution occurs, and you go to the civil or you go to the criminal court structure, and then the punishment dished out to you is death, is the same as like in the moment shooting someone in self-defense. Like we are not on the same planet. If you think that this is equivalent, okay? You are talking about an entirely different scenario, brother. What the fuck are you talking about? You can't say that it's an analogy because it's not an analogy at all. One is a entire process. Like one is after apprehension, detainment, criminal prosecution, and then sentencing that comes afterwards versus someone defending themselves in the moment.
Force.
You mean self-defense?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Right now, whether you want it to or not, if someone robs a liquor store, should they go to jail?
Should they go to jail?
Under the current laws, regardless of your opinions, should the police arrest the person?
Should the people arrest the person for robbing a liquor store?
Yes.
I mean, I think they should, yes.
Do you think in literally every single circumstance, then, no matter what happens if someone commits a robbery, they should be arrested?
I mean, I suppose there could be extenuating circumstances, but yes, if you commit a crime, you should be arrested.
So the clarification that I'm trying to make, it's not about, I don't think there's any real reason to try and go back and parse semantics. The concept was, if people are levying war against the United States, such as we're on the battlefield somewhere in Iraq or whatever, right?
Wait, this whole thing was about treason, where you were saying that...
Do you want me to explain the ideas, or do you want to just go in circles? I don't understand.
Well, I want you just to address what I'm talking about.
I'm trying to.
Instead of talking about war. All right, go ahead, please.
Treason is levying war.
Treason is levying war?
Or providing aid to the enemy of the United States in a time of war.
Well, it also, you can be, I mean, there's been people who have been charged with treason when we're not in an active war, but yes, I guess. But however you want to parse this, treason is a legal charge against somebody. And there are multiple potential penalties for that, one of which includes capital punishment. And just
for the sake of clarity, because in the show we're not talking about specifics of someone may or may not be wrongly charged. If you're asking me why I would say something like should be, it's rooted in this. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of two witnesses of the same overt act or confession in open court. So the issue at hand was when
I like that they left the empty chair on there. Like they didn't shut down that camera. What's happening here? I mean, that's like a production note, but like, what are we doing here? Like, come on, you're like a multi-million-dollar operator. You got like millions of dollars from the Russian government.
When we were talking, and I said, I don't think any of these people committed treason. I don't think anything they've done is worthy of death. I don't agree with the death penalty. The return is, but what if they're levying war against us? And then someone decides their life should be forfeit.
I watched that video, and in fact, I remember that.
Hey, Hasan, I don't know just anything about Sam. Did he have a history in debates, or is he just that guy with the knowledge of both? He loves debating. He's very good at debating. And also on top of that, he is very knowledgeable. This is Sam. Sam loves doing this stuff. Like he truly enjoys this. I think a lot more than I do, in terms of like talking to silly people and like unwinding them step by step. Now, Tim Pool himself is not exactly the most apt, astute debater either. But yeah, he is. What do you mean Russian money? They're American. Tim Pool, were you not around when the? Okay, you're gonna have to take this up with the Department or the Department of Justice and the FBI, my friend, because they disagree with you. Like, there was a whole investigation conducted into tenant media, which is precisely what Sam is going to be talking about, which is why he started talking about the death penalty for treason, because he's going to walk him through those steps and inevitably get to, has your position changed on death penalty for treason since you committed treason by receiving money from a foreign adversary to do propaganda in the United States of America in an active proxy war that's currently happening within Ukraine and Russia, which is technically within the confines of what Tim Pool had talked about, or, you know, in terms of like treason and the death penalty for treason. So
this now, actually, we were going over the ridiculousness of your lawsuit, and I said, you know,
don't trust anything Daniel Strada Music says. What?
Oh, Tim says he doesn't agree with the death penalty. That's fine. And then they played more where you say, if you've committed treason, you should get the death penalty. I mean, and the interesting thing is, then I watched, hold on, but let me finish. And
do
then,
you want to do a drama circle jerk, or do you want to actually talk about the ideas of the death penalty?
Ooh, he's already getting mad. It's like, dude, we're 10 minutes in. Why are you mad already? Why you have to be mad?
And what should or should not happen?
no, I think that I personally am against the death penalty. I think
So let's
you
talk
are
about
maybe against the death penalty.
I'm 100% against death penalty.
But what I found fascinating, it was as if you watch that video as it goes further along, and maybe you can release it. I don't know if it's behind a paywall or what. I watched it somewhere, so I know it exists. Maybe it was on Rumble. And if you go along, it's almost like you catch yourself and you realize, like, wait a second, I'm against the death penalty. So, no, you shouldn't get capital punishment. And that's one of the things that I think, like, in terms of, like, that I have always found fascinating about you. And that there's actually a great video by Timba Toast on how you vacillate between different political ideas as a way of, like, maintaining a certain brand.
What is the brand?
Well, I don't, not exactly sure what you think the brand is, but
here's the challenge. Here's the challenge. You know, if I post a joke on X that is like over the top, for instance, I tweeted Kamala Harris is like Hitler and Stalin times 200, and she's going to start 800 wars. That was actually written about in various liberal outlets as if it was a fact statement. And so I'm sitting here being like, can they not tell? Well, there's Poe's law. I get it. Sometimes they don't. But the issue at hand right now is just semantics. So instead of saying like, well,
dude, we're in the communication business. Like, our words are important. Now, listen,
Sure.
I'm about to pull out it was a joke defense. Very, very ineffective, I think.
certainly understand people misinterpreting a tweet. Believe me, I've been there.
I will just say this for the sake of clarity. Right now, regardless of my opinions on law, should the law be that someone will receive the death penalty, then they should receive it. I oppose it.
But it doesn't necessarily, the treason, the punishment for treason is not necessarily the death penalty any more than it is with murder.
All right, so let's just try and...
Why would you ever say, if you're against death penalty...
This is, once again, misconception I'm trying to get past, so let me explain.
Okay.
In the circumstance where someone has committed a death-worthy trespass, I oppose the death penalty. I would advocate against it. We recently had a big case where there were two instances where people were put to death. One guy, the family even said it shouldn't happen. They had cut a deal with the prosecutor. It still happened. And that was, I believe it was, who was that? That was Missouri. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people who watch my show were quite outraged that a family would say no. But the issue at hand is I don't assert myself over the rest of the country in law, which means if the mechanism of the courts is as such, that's what should happen. I will fight against it. That's the semantic misunderstanding.
Oh, all right.
Let's just put it like this.
Because you were so offended. I mean, the reason why I thought I was here was because you were so offended that I said you were against the death penalty.
You said I was for it.
And I got confused when you said someone should get the death penalty
under a mechanism of law that I oppose.
Well, you never said those words.
But that was the whole conversation.
No, actually it wasn't.
Literally was.
We could play it.
But I mean, look. How about we just, instead of going back and forth and saying it was this show where these things were said,
I don't think he understands what opposing a law means. Like, you can't say you oppose the death penalty, but if that's currently the law, then you're on board with it. Like, then it should happen. That means you're not in opposition to the death penalty. I oppose capital punishment, which is why I will always say I oppose capital punishment. I'll even offer coverage to instances where capital punishment is occurring. Like specifically the case in Missouri or the one in Texas where like people with a lot of evidence as to their innocence are still executed by the state. Like, that is what opposition to the death penalty or opposition to capital punishment looks like. You know, the one in Texas was state. Well, the other one wasn't, but regardless, even if someone is guilty, I still oppose capital punishment, for the record. Like, regardless of whether there is enough information, enough evidence readily available of their innocence, I just genuinely oppose the death penalty in general. I don't think it's appropriate.
We lay it out on the table. There it is.
Okay, there.
Death penalty should be opposed.
We agree on that.
The government is a failed arbiter of who should live or die. This mechanism doesn't work at an institutional level.
I don't know that anybody is.
It makes it seem like he's opposing the death penalty now, specifically for treason, because he may or may not have, accidentally committed treason in terms of being directly financed and changing. Being directly financed by a foreign adversary government
is a arbiter of who should live or die. But yes,
excuse me. There is some context that is more challenging, such as if a man pointed a weapon at your children, would you decide that he should die?
I mean, if someone pointed a weapon at my children, I would attempt to do whatever I needed to do to stop them. But that's different than
including lethal force.
I mean, if that's what it took, of course.
So that is you making the decision that you will take action which may lead to the death of an individual.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would suffer the consequences, but I don't believe in general that in capital punishment. I mean, that's not capital punishment. That's
I agree. I'm just saying
self-defense, or
in certain circumstances, a person will decide someone may be about to die. And there's other issues, of course, like whether to render medical aid is a different circumstance. If someone is already dying, then there's if someone is in peril but you can't save them. But in terms of a human being making an active decision to end someone's life, there are many circumstances where someone will decide that they are the arbiter of that decision. Police officers do it every day. Soldiers do it every day, and often regular people. We have the Penny trial in New York right now, where they've got the trial going on for the Daniel Penny in New York, where he put that guy in the chokehold. And the guy died. He made that decision at that point.
He killed the guy.
He did. And he made that decision for whatever reason. I am going to apply this technique to this man, may result in death. So at a certain point, someone makes that choice. The question then is, do we agree that the choice was necessary or that they were backed into a corner? And that's a difficult decision. So I would just put it this way. I think in a perfect world.
This has nothing to do with capital punishment, though.
It's about whether someone chooses someone else should die.
Right, but that has nothing to do with capital punishment.
They share
capital punishment is
they
definitionally a punishment that is put out by the government, as opposed to an individual's decision as to whether or not they're going to apply lethal force to somebody. It has nothing to do with it. You would never say
they're literally
that Penny provided capital punishment to that guy on the subway, because
anyone's making that argument.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It has nothing to do with capital punishment.
Just in the sense that someone's making a decision over someone's death, and the question being, in the case of self-defense, I agree there are circumstances, and in the case of capital punishment, I agree there are no circumstances.
Okay.
I don't believe there's a reality where the government has successfully subdued an individual who they are no longer a threat, and then they just decide 20 years later, now let's kill the person. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do not believe that we should have capital punishment. I do not believe in the death penalty.
How do we stop it?
Well, I mean, there have been times in the past where we've come close, I think. Sadly, I think because of all of the ginned up stuff about crime in this country over the past couple of years.
Yes, talk about the crime hysteria. Crime hysteria. crime panic, crime hysteria time. Let's do it.
I think we're moving in the wrong direction. I think the Democrats actually took it out of their platform this year that they're against the capital punishment. It is a problem. There is a cost associated with the attempts to scare people about crime in this country, and that's one of the costs, that we move further away from some type of positive public policy.
4% of death row inmates are likely innocent. And that means at an institutional level, people in this country accept 4 in 100 people.
Wait, what? Like, is he? I'm confused as to what Tim is arguing for here. I'm not going to lie, because it's like you're arguing against capital punishment, but then you're tying it back to like how it might be appropriate under certain circumstances because like self-defense exists. And it's like, if you think 4%, if you think the percentage of 4% in a legal structure where like innocent people are executed by the state is unconscionable, I don't even know what the percentage of like self-defense instances that actually end up shooting someone that had no business being shot at all, but simply because of castle doctrine, the person got away with it under our current legal system. That number has to be higher than 4%, like significantly higher than 4%. So innocent executions in the heat of the moment are significantly fucking higher. Like executing an innocent person because you were fearful of them is significantly higher. There's a shit ton of manslaughter cases specifically surrounding that. So you should be against that too, I guess, if that's your principle.
Will be murdered by the state, unjustly killed for a sense of security. I reject that outright.
Yeah, I mean, I think both in terms of efficacy, but even in terms of, I think if you feel that there is a situation wherein, without a threat to anybody, right? I mean, these people are all in jail, that there is a justification to kill someone in cold blood, then I think it just becomes a negotiation as to when it's not.
You know what really gets me too is what I hear from a lot of people is, what about when you've seen on video they're harming a child or they're doing something? And it's funny because in a circumstance where an individual literally witnesses a crime happening, it's easy to say, sure, we can, like if you're out in public and you see someone committing an egregious crime that is going to cause great bodily harm or death. But why does that justify an institutional, national level mechanism by which the government can decide that someone dies? I think it comes down to 12 people walk into a room and they've never met before, points to a person they've never met, and they say, trust me, kill him. And these people are like, well, I guess. I think that's insanity.
No, I agree. Yeah. I mean, you brought up the Penny thing, and I think that's why it's even that much more egregious, in my opinion, his killing of that man, because I don't believe in that situation there was any type of threat that justified holding this guy in a chokehold for that many minutes at all, frankly, for that matter.
What do you think like the penalty should be? Like, do you think like they're charging him, I think, with negligent? Is it negligent homicide? I'm not sure. Or
at the very least, I would imagine manslaughter. But in generally, as a rule, I don't really parse out court cases. I mean, if there's a charge, as a matter of public policy, there are instances where I think that people should be charged.
They're having a conversation around capital punishment in a way where Tim Pool is agreeing with him on principle, but also simultaneously still making it seem like he's disagreeing with him. And that's why it's confusing and it makes no sense. I'm going to skip this.
There are people, I mean, and it put and again,
when do they move on to some other shit?
The guy is physically assaulted. Scott, we knew, in 2019. Stuff happened.
Because I suspect that like they will then move into like crime panic.
Happens in the subway all the time.
New York's been getting pretty wild. I suppose it's relative to the amount of crime, but
been getting wild in what way?
There were, I think, last year, like 25 people were pushed in front of trains.
I mean, I can tell you that crime in New York City is, down still around historic lows.
Yeah. New York City has one of the most robust, the most robust public transit structure in the United States of America. It's obviously still significantly lower than like our European counterparts or, places like Japan, places like China. But the daily commuter traffic is massive, right? So 25 people being pushed in front of trains is a statistic that comes across as very like emotional and very, it freaks out people. You're like, what the fuck? That's crazy. That's an unacceptable amount of murder. It's like, yeah, of course it is. A single murder is unacceptable. But you have to analyze that within the framework of millions of people commuting every single day. Okay? So when you look at the statistics like that, when you look at the actual statistics, it is such a tiny margin. It is such a tiny margin of people that completely dismantling the public transit structure in an effort to combat this would be absolutely ridiculous. So you still have to look at the actual rates of crime in general. You cannot. This is part of the problem with the media as well and the coverage of this kind of stuff, where the media loves feeding into the crime panic in general, and it personally creates this environment where a lot of people are making false assumptions about the reality. Is Unc gonna hang out for sushi? I told him jokingly, I was like, I jokingly asked him that like a week prior to this, and he's like, I'm not eating anything over there. That's what he said.
I'm old, so I remember New York in the late 80s. And it's
wow.
It's like
3 years ago. Sorry, I was wrong. Yeah, it was in 2022. I think it was.
Oh, well, listen, during
people.
COVID, we had a once in a lifetime event, hopefully, knock on wood. And a lot of things got messed up, but crime is back down. The only crime that has gone up, which is fascinating. And for all of the BS that we heard over the past couple of years about, shoplifting and smash and grab and all that, do you know what the one major crime that is up?
Which one?
The most statistically? It's actually shoplifting. Shoplifting went up in 2023, and it is now because it went down during COVID. So as much as we heard, and I know you've talked about this quite a bit, and I think it's been misrepresented in a lot of respects.
I don't think Sam is right on this data, by the way, because overall shoplifting and theft went up in accordance to foot traffic going up. Like the rate was a little bit higher than if it was rate adjusted, it would maybe outperform, because when foot traffic goes up, when more people are shopping, there's going to be more people shoplifting, right? The one data point that actually went up was homicides, and that was a brief blip.
All of the shoplifting was up and people are gone mayhem. It's crazy. It was actually below where it was in 2019. And it is now back up to where it was in 2019.
I think,
and because COVID was, screwed up with our society so much. But again, you ask me.
Another aspect of this also is a calculated decision made by the grocery stores themselves, like these chains. The calculated decision to make self-checkout readily accessible, readily available, in an effort to reduce the number of people working the cash registers, in an effort to reduce the number of people that are employed by the grocery store. They know that this will increase shrink. They know that this will cause people to steal stuff. Okay? Because when he's saying shoplifting, he's not specifically just talking about like people going in and doing smash and grabs, right? What you see in the media. Because those smash and grabs, while they can be publicized heavily, are not going to make up for billions of dollars. Actually, the people that are stealing are people like you. It's the people that are complaining about shoplifting that every now and then yoink a fucking Snickers bar at the self-checkout and go, yeah, you know, one for me, one for the store type shit, right? Like that is what is contributing to the overall shrink. And companies know that. They know that if you have self-checkout, people are going to steal some shit. Except the cost for them to employ cashiers and with all their benefits and with all the workplace compensation and all of the other stuff that they have to offer people that they hire, the profit margins still remain high when they automate that process, even if people steal shit. Grocery store corporate executive knows this is a reality that they know because they've made this calculation. And what's really interesting about it is that while I can comprehend this by thinking about this logically, and yet these brilliant minds in the media have never really addressed that at all. You know? It's really, really interesting. Self-checkout is what increases shrink. Okay? That's what, and that is happening across the board. It's not just happening in like Oakland, or it's not just happening in neighborhoods where grocery stores are closing. It's happening all across the board. And they know that it's happening all across the board. And they've built that additional shrink into their profit margins. They know that it's going to happen, but it's still significantly cheaper for them to cut their workforce and allow people to steal some, you know?
Why are we going the wrong direction with capital punishment? I would say it is the absolute BS that has been shoveled. I don't watch your show enough to know, although I've seen people on here who, when Emma was on, who promote this idea that there was like this explosion of crime. And in fact, what ends up happening is that, yes, during COVID, there was a spike. And now we're back down. And the only thing that is back at 2019 levels is actually shoplifting, because it had gone down and it's gone back up because we're back to normal.
So I'm trying to pull up the Marshall Project. This is a good one.
What?
So we had these, this was the story that happened, and this is what's a cause for contention. The FBI released crime data showing that crime had gone down. And, during the presidential debates, David Muir fact-checked Donald Trump saying, actually, crime is down. However, recently, the FBI released new crime data showing that actually it was up. It was up, I believe, 4.5.
Wait, what? Hold on 1 second. Let me just fix my screens real quick because I'm having some issues here. Okay. Oh, Sam's going to cook him on this.
When? What year?
The year prior, 2021.
That it was up.
Yeah. So the latest data that we...
Dude, what are you talking about? Crime is down from 2023 to 2024. That's just the truth. David Muir is correct in correcting Donald Trump. You can't just go back and be like, well, FBI found out that the crime was actually up. Yeah. Yeah, it was up in 2021. Okay. I don't know if you know this, but there's a presidential election happening, which could have clued you in on what year it is, considering that that was in the process of a presidential debate.
We knew. No, it was actually 2022. We knew. We knew. Yeah, it was 2022.
I'm sorry, the increase from 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah,
during COVID. In the wake of COVID, 2022 was up because the data reporting was not complete. But if you look at 2023 data, which is now they have got enough of the police departments online that 94 point, I don't know, something of the country is covered, you will find that crime is down in 2023.
So do you think, I think one of the issues...
We had a rise because of COVID, and now it's dropping back down. But again, let's also be clear on this. If you compare 1990 crime with today, it's basically like this. It's just straight down on that.
You want to know something interesting? You know what one of the biggest factors in the decline in murder is? Cell phones. So back in the day, in the 90s, if somebody got stabbed, somebody had to run to a payphone to try and call 911, and that created a massive gap between first response and medical treatment. And so around the time cell phones came out, you see a massive drop in murder charges and homicides people immediately started thinking like, wow, crime is down. And it's like, well, no. Look at the crime data. It is down. It is going down, but it's not the same. There's a decline in crime and a sharp decline in murder because now people were instantly calling 911 and first responders were arriving on scene much more quickly. So that's
okay. But also the other part was, that's interesting.
Crime's been going down.
Crime has been going down. I mean, there's a lot of theories about it. I happen to think it's a function of lead, to be honest with you.
I agree. Lead in gasoline.
Lead in gasoline and lead regulation. It's another example of strong government regulation bringing about benefits that we couldn't even imagine.
I agree. What do you think? I don't understand the mechanism by which lead made crime happen. I saw the reports though, where
lead is a neurotoxin, and if you have brain damage, you're more likely to be.
That is the sad state of affairs. Is that like, yes, a big chunk of our Gen Xers are just straightforwardly brain damaged. It's kind of a wild reality to reckon with, but yeah, a lot of our boomers, but specifically Gen X, is the lead generation, is the lead poison generation. And yeah, it is perhaps one of the major reasons as to why they are so incredibly violent. Yeah. This is probably one of the most resilient theories I've ever seen on the matter, in terms of like why there was such historic highs in crime, and how we have basically reached historic lows in crime. Like the lead theory is like I don't think it's like a crazy conspiracy is what I'm saying. I don't,
maybe violent or antisocial.
That's crazy. Like in the 70s when we had leaded gasoline and it's just pumping out of all these cars, people are effectively having some kind of effect on their brain that
it aggregates. And so if you are living in areas that had a lot of lead paint, hadn't been remediated, and on top of that, you're getting gasoline that's in the air, or I should say lead that is, in the air because of gas, that accumulates in your brain. And it creates neurotoxin. That's why we have that problem in Flint, Michigan,
right,
with the lead poisoning. We have a lot of children, who have special needs, and there is data. I mean, this is it's very difficult to assess this stuff, but there's data that shows that about 20 years after lead gasoline is outlawed, or lead in gasoline is outlawed, you see a precipitous drop in crime that's happened both internationally and in this country.
What do you think about phthalates? Are you familiar?
No.
So plastic chemicals leaching into our food.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Even these cans. So I'm gonna give a shout out to Liquid Death. They'll get mad at me, I guess. So Liquid Death is water in cans, and it says death to plastic. But every single aluminum can is lined with plastic, so it's all leaching into our even these midriffs. They say they're endocrine disruptors. So they're affecting people's hormone regulation, hormone balance. This could lead to, depending on the study, hormone imbalance could lead to like emotional disturbances or dissociative.
This part I don't understand, because I love drinking just cans. I love slamming Diet Cokes all day, every day. And I also happen to pay close attention to my testosterone levels. Like I have a pretty healthy, relatively balanced diet on top of that. And I just don't know. Like, I feel like if there was someone who would get hit with the microplastics, make you gay shit, which is what like his underlying theory is here, like I'd be the number one person who is homified, Because I'm not even at this point. I'm mostly macroplastic. I've moved beyond microplastic.
or like identity issues.
This is one of the reasons why, I mean, since we are a couple of days away from an election,
I'm such a soda
why
boy.
I think it's so important to make sure that Donald Trump is not in a position to appoint any more Supreme Court justices. I mean, the damage has been done, but you know, it could be rectified, because one of the things that this Supreme Court has done in its assault on what is known as the Chevron doctrine, and and deference, is it will over time inhibit the ability of something like the EPA or the USDA or the FDA from assessing in real time that there is a problem with certain products that is poisoning our environment or poisoning our people, and it will inhibit their ability to address it, because we don't know in the future, and certainly if you know what chemicals, you know, we discovered this over time, right? We didn't know this when plastics are fantastic. And then we start to realize there's these PFAS, there's these things that you mentioned, maybe in the context of fracking, there are certain things leaching into water, but you probably know that you can't just there's no, I test water and then all the bad stuff comes back on the test sheet. You must look for specific things. Well, what this Supreme Court has done is inhibited, and this actually is even a problem for investors like the SEC and other agencies. They have inhibited the ability of these agencies to do their work as scientists, as financial regulators, find problems that exist that were not contemplated by Congress and act upon them, because Congress doesn't have the ability, to act on every single or anticipate every single substance that may be a problem for people, or and
high fructose corn syrup.
I mean, that's also a problem. That was under the Nixon administration. They decided they wanted to increase the amount of money that expendable money that people had. So they decided to subsidize corn and make all the food cheaper. But
isn't it weird how the high fructose corn syrup things happens? They subsidize corn, so then these researchers are like, corn's so cheap now because it's being paid for by the government, by taxpayers, that we can produce. It's actually difficult to make high fructose corn syrup. It's more expensive than sugar, but the government subsidy has resulted in
100%. It's also the filler in all our foods.
Yeah. I was reading something recently that said that the high colon cancer rate among young people is due to emulsifiers. They're using
This looks like Temple receiving an entry-level college class. Yeah. It is not as contentious as I thought it was going to be. I mean, I still appreciate it. I think it's good for Temple's audience to have a better, wait for it. Okay. All I'm saying is it's good for Temple's audience to get an introduction to someone like Samuel Cedar in a non-adversarial setting like this, because they'll learn some shit, hopefully.
Gelling gum and guar gum and these things in dairy products. So, or not even just dairy products, but to make it seem like it's fatty. And so you're actually just eating this gum stuff that gunks up your insides. I don't know how you appropriately regulate or deal with things like that, because it's like you're saying, we don't know what it's going to do until we have all this data and research for a long period of time.
I mean, we could regulate against it. I wasn't quite a
Tim is like, look at us. Isn't this world crazy? Yeah, he is doing that.
Fan of Michael Bloomberg, but one of the things he did was, I think it was during the Bloomberg administration, there were polysaturated fats, I think it was, that were outlawed in New York City. I think that's become the norm around the country. Even you couldn't buy a 40-ounce soda.
That was kind of weird.
Not really, because it's the same principle, right? I mean, the fact is that and the pushback from conservatives in this was so ridiculous, because look, I can't go buy a pony version of a beer. I don't want a 12-ounce beer.
It's not illegal.
I want to, well, but I can't, it's not available to me. I mean, the size distribution, what difference does it make? Like at the end of the day,
Right, well, that's true because people just bought 2 sodas.
it is.
Speak for yourself, brother. You better not be advocating to make my beer gay. I want multiple beers. I need to slam them back.
Yeah, I mean, if you buy 2 sodas, at least you're trying to basically, you're not. You're not outlawing. You're not outlawing sodas or whatnot, but you're trying to encourage less cost essentially for society, right? Because more people get diabetes, that ends up costing society more. I mean, so there's a lot of value to regulation. Look, we saw this in the context of light bulbs. The light technology we have in here, right? All these LEDs. It's a lot cooler in here than it would be if we had the old timey lights.
Oh, they burn out too.
The LEDs don't. They're cheaper. It took a couple of years before you got the technology was better. But maybe you remember this, but the outrage by conservatives over the light bulbs. And we hear Trump talk about this too with the toilets and whatnot. Incidentally, I'm very sorry. You have a very fancy toilet. And you have a very fancy toilet.
Oh my God, he dumped in there. He dumped it. Yo, that's crazy. He did not just dump. He did not dump in Tim. That is an act of resistance right there.
Apologized.
Well, it wouldn't flush.
You got to, because it's a fancy toilet. It's trying to save water. We try, man. So
no, I appreciate that.
But you end up having to press it several times, and then
it didn't work for me.
Should we just get the regular one? The regular?
I don't know what you should do, but maybe I would call the authorities because
Well, I mean, but that's kind of an issue.
That's insane. That is an insane thing to say. He's like, you should call the authorities because I left a big one in there.
Right, we have
That's some shit I would say. It's funny hearing Sam Seder say that.
This like high-end eco toilet. It will.
Well, it's a bidet, and it's fantastic. I really enjoyed that part of it. It's just,
yeah, bidets are the
but
best.
it won't flush.
It didn't flush.
Yeah, people keep asking, like, I don't understand. I'm like, you got to press it like 3 times because it has like a sensor.
I pressed it at like 5.
So I mean, this kind of feels like an example. So we agree. We want to reduce excess waste. We want to reduce overuse. Waste in general. Like we don't want to produce waste. We want to not waste things like fresh water. But now we have a toilet that requires 5 flushes because we tried doing the right thing.
Well, I mean, look, you just bought the wrong toilet. I mean,
one downstairs and
I have low flow. You can find low flow, manual toilets. I mean, that's a high end toilet.
This conversation is getting derailed.
But, I mean, the bottom line is all of these. There are definitely regulations. Nobody's forcing you to buy that toilet, but there are definitely regulations that we find over time are not as effective as we thought. But the bottom line is all of this deregulation that we're seeing is a function of largely certainly of conservatives, but largely a function of the Republican Party. And now we see, for me, Kamala Harris would not be the first person that I would vote for, but in terms of the Supreme Court, that alone is enough for me.
How do we balance?
And federal courts, I would say too, broadly. I mean,
how do we balance this? Right. So there's a push and pull between private and public. There are, I've never been a laissez-faire libertarian guy. I've never heard a good argument from a libertarian about how you protect water. I've often brought up the Clean Water Restoration Act. Are you familiar?
A little bit.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. It's just I think it was the 70s. I'm not sure if it was the Cuyahoga River.
It was the Cuyahoga River in Ohio that was on fire, and that's where we got the EPA from.
Right. And people were like, why is this? And what ends up happening is all of these corporations say, don't look at me. I only did a little bit. And it's like, well, yeah, but literally everybody doing a little bit is an avalanche.
Yes, of course.
And I've never heard a good answer for how you deal with something like that. Just claiming someone owns the river changes nothing.
No, of course it doesn't. I mean, I've had many, many debates. People can.
So what we've learned so far is that Tim Pool is, one, a steady opponent, a steady opponent of capital punishment, and 2, is an environmentalist. 39 minutes in, And the entire conversation has been Tim Pool agreeing with Sam that capital punishment is unconscionable, and that, two, we really have to do climate change initiatives. We really should not have gutted the EPA. It seems like Tim Pool is voting for maybe not even Kamala Harris out of the anger that he has towards Kamala Harris's lackluster approach to climate change initiatives. Is that what's going on? Am I hearing this correctly? This seems very different than the Trump will win every state by a landslide Tim Pool from 2020. Tim Pool is a PSL pilled, it seems.
Can look on my channel for my debates with libertarians, and at one point it all just turns into ridiculous mush with libertarians. And look, there's the idea that you are either pro-regulation or anti-regulation. To be anti-regulation is, in my estimation, absurd. But that doesn't mean that you don't look at each regulation and make an assessment as to whether it's functioning or not. There's a lot of local regulations that I think are unhelpful at times. I'm sure on a federal level there are some regulations that are unhelpful. But the bottom line is, fundamentally,
this kind of stuff annoys me though, because it's like guys like this who are otherwise like amoral, who are otherwise like valueless, can so quickly behave like a chameleon in any sort of conversation, you know, and they can suit. They can basically change their entire worldview just for the sake of that conversation, and then just go back to the regular bullshit. And I don't know. I find it a little bit aggravating. I find it a little bit annoying. There are a lot of people there are a lot of people I see, like Tim Pool is a propagandist for sure. Obviously he's a right-wing guy. But there's even people in like the debate space, for example, that will, that are very clearly not motivated by empathy and don't have a world view that revolves around like doing no harm or minimizing harm, anything like that. And they can just like in these, depending on who their opponent is, they can turn around and just, you know, argue on the exact opposite sides of a position. They're like debate mercenaries, basically. And I don't think their audiences punish them enough for it anyway. Like, I don't think people will punish. That's why D is on his pro-Palestine arc right now and debating Zionists and blaming you for affecting the movement for worse. I like that his entire worldview is just motivated by whatever, like being at odds with me, no matter what it is. Yeah, he's the true advocate for the Palestinian cause after advocating to genocide them and continuing to defend that genocide for a year of said genocide. And now he's going to be the true champion of the pro-Palestinian cause. And be like, Hasan is the bad guy. I don't believe that he is actually flipped. This chatter keeps saying he is. Or this chatter keeps saying he has flipped. But good luck. You know? Like I said, if you came out pro-Israel on October 7th, he would have been pro-Palestine, probably. But that is precisely what I'm talking about. That is actually what I'm talking about, which is that like a lot of these people just have like an enemy that they've designated. Like with Destiny, it's obvious. With Destiny is obvious. It's like he has tailored a lot of his content and a lot of his ideology around like being in opposition to me. So anything that drives a wedge, he will try to utilize, which is very strange. But one thing that is clear is that yes, he has no consistent set of principles or values. but he is rhetorically skilled enough to be able to, I guess, dupe people, especially in like short bursts. When something is like clipped in a TikTok debate format or whatever, he can get people to be like, yeah, this is this guy seems to be on my team or whatever. And most people don't interrogate or examine the full scope of their knowledge or their opinions or their advocacy. But and that's pretty much it. Is it successful? Are you noticing more hate or not? Not really. I don't think it's that strange because he's definitely getting bred of that tactic. I know, but I think ultimately it doesn't really matter. Let's continue.
Do you allow the government to have this ability to regulate? The idea that we have, that it inhibits the free market in some way, I think the idea of a free market is absurd, doesn't exist. But beyond that, we're always regulating the market. It's just a question for whose benefit are we regulating it? That's the bottom line.
I think free markets can only exist temporarily until someone amasses power and then displaces the market and becomes the power structure.
There is no, like, what is a free market?
It would be like 10 people who live 10 miles from each other, they trade periodically. But once you get to a point where anyone controls one resource, you start to get power displacement, and then you'll end up with power centralizing.
Yes. Well, the first thing that you're talking about, hasn't existed in
forever.
Yeah, forever. I mean, really.
But
if he's saying anything pro-Palestine, it's because the tides have turned so much further than they ever were, and it's more beneficial from a standpoint to ride both sides now. Yeah, that's probably what it is. But good luck to him. I hope that he finds peace one day and stops relentlessly trying to smear me with his maybe 3,000 cultish freaks that are in here probably every single day, more than they even watch him. The reality of the matter is it'll never happen because he makes money off of that.
But it's like, I talk about this with left libertarianism because a lot of people on the right say it doesn't exist. And I'm like, it absolutely does. It's hippies living on a farm. You know what I mean? That's left libertarianism. They're just hippies on a farm. There's no need for great power structures or police because 10 people living on a farm get along just fine.
Yeah,
but scaling things up is where...
and maybe they're completely self-sufficient, but they got there in some fashion, and it wasn't they drove on roads that were built right by a society. So.
It is funny because I always hear libertarians say that it's a meme who's going to build the roads, and I never actually get a response.
Well,
like private companies,
you could find private companies that are going to build roads, but they're
they do.
Yes, but they're not going to build.
The trap card. Never tell a deregulation, anarcho-capitalist, libertarian slanted guy how roads are built. Okay? Never tell them that. You'll destroy their worldview. Okay? It's pretty funny that this ideology has existed for so long, and yet they have seemingly not come across like a coherent way to get around the initial infrastructure expenditure necessary. Like they say toll roads and whatnot, but there's still a massive amount of expenditure that you need to put down before you get to that process. And it's like virtually impossible. It is virtually impossible to do that with simple tolls. So it's pretty funny. Sam has taken calls from any libertarian who will speak with him to debate on the subject, and they've all been destroyed so badly that none even bother to call anymore. Yeah, I will never understand like how this genuine issue is presented to libertarians on a regular basis, and they never have an answer for it. Like I've yet to hear a coherent counter argument to a concept as simple as fucking roads. Like there are varying degrees of anarchist thought on this matter. You have minarchists who believe in like small government because you still need to have a court structure, right, to enforce contracts. That's another fun argument that I'm sure Sam engages with all the time. But it's just, yeah, you bring up the court system, you bring up the enforcement of the court system, and all of a sudden, bedlam. No coherent, reasonable counter argument to either of these things where you're like, okay, so you want a minimal government, you want a court structure, who's going to do the contract enforcement? Zapatistas have roads, CNT had roads, the anarchists in Manchuria had roads, though. Yeah, that's different. We're talking about anarcho-capitalists. It is like one is the abolition of hierarchy and the democratization of all matter, all aspects of governance. The other is only unjustifiable hierarchies where might is right and money plays a significantly larger role, where there is no, there is no structure at all. There's no enforcement at all.
Build it to everywhere, like out here, I
We
mean,
had to build this road.
well, you built the road, not the paved one.
The no, the one that goes onto the property, we had to build.
Not
Well, yes,
fooling
of course,
libertarians by
but,
bringing up them
but,
bitch-ass roads. Libertarians, which tend to be smarter people, you somehow think that the thing that's going to stump us and be like, damn, fuck this libertarian shit, is the motherfucking roads. This is level 1 shit. You not fooling now libertarian by bringing up them bitch-ass roads.
So what's the, like, who builds it? What are you going to do? You're just going to pave it yourself, like Tim Pool said? Because roads are, at the end of the day, a circuit. They have to connect. Railroads are private corporations for what it's worth. Yeah. And that process has been fantastic. Also, once again, tremendous amount of government expenditure on that as well. Heavily regulated, would be significantly more efficient if nationalized. Still requires, there is no massive infrastructure project. There is no massive infrastructure project like that was not built with government interference. Okay? Roads are built by the government and then given to private contractors. Railroads still similar structure.
Fuck them hoe ass roads, man.
The paved one gives you the opportunity to, that's the way you get to the airport.
Yeah. So I guess the point about regulation is I certainly agree. It's like Republicans across the board are almost always talking about deregulation. But
It's absurd.
But I don't see Democrats talking about cleaning regulation either. right? There's a give and take.
What?
Let me give you a better example.
What does cleaning regulation mean?
Getting rid of the bad ones.
Oh my God. I mean, I
Or
would
like
say so
reforming.
to an excessive standpoint. I mean, this is, and I'm not speaking positively of this, but that guy Cass Sunstein underneath under the Obama administration, it was absurd. The idea, look, I don't think you ever have to worry about the Democrats putting.
I agree with you almost 100% on everything. But just as a devil's advocate, how does this line of thinking apply to NASA versus SpaceX in terms of success and efficiency of systems? I'd assume it's not a public versus private perfect example, but yeah, curious of your thoughts. Yeah, that's actually a wonderful question. SpaceX is NASA. You're doing the railroad argument again. It's the government building it and then offering, like government building the underlying infrastructure and then handing the keys to a private corporation and then still continuously funding that private corporation. That is, SpaceX is funded by the government. It's comprised almost entirely of former JPL NASA engineers. The major issue with the major argument against this in terms of like aerospace manufacturing and technological achievements that occur in the field of aerospace is that when it's funded by the government gets to say, because it might be, politically sound, we're spending too much money on this shit. Okay? When it's at least a private contractor, they can give the same amount of money, if not more money. Okay? But it's hidden as it's written off as an expenditure that isn't cut because we have no mechanism of saying we got to lower the amount of subsidies that we're offering to private corporations because the private-public partnership is the method in the United States of America. That is the saddest aspect of this. These massive technological improvements that have been life-changing have almost always come from the public sector because massive technological leaps require an endless amount of failure. Private corporations have short-term profit motives. Therefore, they do not have a lot of room for failure. They do not have a lot of room to just like burn endless amounts of money in an effort to get to a certain point necessary. The internet would have never been created under a private structure. It just simply would not happen. And the same is true for novel chemical compound discovery, for example. Like virtually every single novel chemical compound discovery happens in public research. Okay? Other countries that have more robust public research facilities and spend less money actually are per capita creating more novel chemical compounds than the United States of America. There's a reason for that. It's because failure is not viewed in the same way in the public sector as it is in the private one. Failure is a necessary part of scientific discovery. There are many examples of this in every field. What the fuck is a novel chemical compound? Medicine? Yes.
too much regulation on things because to, a certain extent, there's still elements within that party, and hopefully it's getting drummed out.
Well, guns is a good issue on overregulation.
Neoliberalism. Guns are
overregulated in ways that don't quite make sense, right? So that's an example of, for instance, semantic definitions of high capacity and standard capacity, what those even mean. But more importantly, the specific example would be in Maryland, they've banned the M1A, but the SCAR 20S is legal, despite the fact, and there's no legal, there's no reason for it other than Democrats just decided we will start regulating these things because it sounds good on paper.
Well, I think that probably the reason is that we have a court that decided.
Reporting from Tim's chat, libertarians literally have answers to every single thing you said. You just don't listen. I mean, I have listened. Toll roads is not an accurate, adequate counter, and court enforcement still needs to be maintained by a state. So if you leave that up to private corporations, the results are not going to be good. A lot of libertarians who work regular 9-to-5 jobs, who fantasize about one day becoming like crypto billionaires or whatever, don't recognize that if you're a serf under this current structure, more deregulation is not going to magically make you a slave owner, a slave master. It's going to make you a slave. But a lot of people think falsely that I'm actually in a shitty situation right now, but in a structure where there's more exploitation and less safeguards, I'll actually thrive. It's like, no, you won't. The very same people that dominate your lives will be able to dominate them even more. It's going to be the board of executives at Coca-Cola that make these decisions, as they do currently within the confines of a state structure.
In 2008, after almost 200 years in this country of not perceiving an individual right to carry a gun, but only in the context of
the idea that libertarianism involves CP or getting rid of driver's licenses, the age of consent, are just stereotypes. It's interesting that they're just stereotypes, even though it seems to be the only things that they advocate for in their own conferences. Like, Tim Pool is not a libertarian. Is Rothbard not a libertarian? Libertarianism simply means you have the freedom to do whatever you want as long as your actions don't harm others. Okay. Deregulation does not mean no regulation. Limited government does not mean no government. I feel like you're at odds with some of your fellow libertarians, at least the most public-facing ones, whether they are in academia or ones that are publicly advocating for these positions. Every single libertarian is like, this other guy isn't a real libertarian. He's fake and gay. Yeah.
Being a well-regulated militia, that because the court has lurched so far to the right over the past 2 decades, particularly most recently, that I think the idea is that you chip away at this from a legal perspective to try and build a legal precedent by doing, whatever. I mean, I'm not familiar with that specific regulation, but I would imagine that's the idea. We're going to get as much regulation as we can in this. I don't know.
Side note, please go back to your previous lighting setup. It was better somehow. I disagree. And I think chat will disagree with you as well. I think chat likes this new lighting setup a lot more. It makes the camera quality a lot better. Like, the camera literally looks better. It's lit better.
So, like, what's the damage done by that? Maybe from the perspective.
Made people felons who have like an archaic, it's unfair to call it archaic, I guess, but like the M1 Garand is like a Vietnam weapon, and the M1A is a more modern version, but it's like a wood stock, and it's got like it's a 308. The SCAR 20S is a modern AR-15 style variant, which is substantially more efficient.
Well, I am definitely in favor of outlawing, all of them, if that makes it easier.
Every single one.
Well, I listen. I think that people. I have no problem with people using weapons that are specifically for hunting. that's I'm okay with that. But
See how I segued into guns now?
well, I'm happy to, I mean, it's absurd. I think,
a bit of a forced segue.
but the Supreme Court has lurched to the right, and we
Completely
have
agree.
two Supreme Court justices on the right who I think want to retire in Alito and in Clarence Thomas, and I would love Donald Trump not to have the opportunity to appoint their successors.
I don't want to go too. I want to stay on the guns for a bit, but the sign's pointing to a Trump victory. It doesn't mean he's going to win. I don't know if he's going to win.
Didn't you tell me we were driving up and somebody asked me if I'd been on your show before, and I said, yeah, I don't know what show it was because you got so many, but
It was actually this channel.
okay.
That was like 7 years ago.
And nobody can find that interview, but I'm quite convinced that you also predicted a Trump victory then, and that must have been like it was pre-COVID.
Well, this is like 2017, 2018.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe not, but I'm pretty sure it was.
I mean, I am unclear as to who's going to win this election. Nobody knows. I see positive signs for Harris, but I can't tell if that's me being aspirational or not. So
Well, I would certainly say I learned my lesson with 2020, right? So I'm
Damn! Wait, no way. Yo, he did not just say that. Bro said 50 states landslide. No, did he say 49 state? I don't want to get it wrong. Bro said 49 state landslide for Trump, dude. What was the one state that loses? What was the one godless commie freak state? Was it California? No, I don't even think it was California. I think it was like it was like Colorado or something, or Vermont that was going to stay Democrat.
I'm looking at, for instance, Moody's Analytics, and they always release this economic report where they're like, here's our projections.
I gotta
and
pee.
they tout how it's historically accurate. And then what I think I saw was there was an increase in support for Trump. And what I thought I was calling out accurately was an increase in opposition to Trump, but the opposition certainly was greater. But I think the biggest function of 2020 was Republicans just don't know how to win elections. That's why I think the last Republican to win a popular vote was it Reagan? I think.
well, Bush in his second election did, but he did that by basically coming out and bashing gay people and driving out
war.
No, I think that was actually despite the fact, I mean, in the wake of 9/11, there was a lot of intimidation by the Republicans, and they attacked a lot of Democrats for being, Max Cleland, who lost both his arms and his legs or an arm and two of his legs, I think it was. He was running for re-election in Georgia, and they called him Osama bin Laden.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, who knows? Hillary Clinton had a 95% chance of winning, and the 5% came in. So I don't. But let's
think
go
they were
back to.
wrong.
I'm going to ask you about the Supreme Court, because it sounds like you have a problem with how their right would shift. Is that right?
The first challenge is like right and left mean different things in different areas of governance and culture and things like this. So it's when we talk about right.
Well, I'm talking about in terms of the Supreme Court, in the context of what a Supreme Court does. I mean, they don't dictate culture so much as they dictate law.
No, what I mean is, like you say, rightward shift, and defining what right and left are in different contexts, I think, matters, because if we say,
in the context of the Supreme Court, rightward shift would be one which
traditionalist, I would say, versus progressive. That's what I'm trying to draw a distinction on, because like right economic they're certainly not right economic to a certain degree.
The Supreme Court is not right wing in terms of economic.
The Supreme Court is not okay. Yeah, I mean, he said the same thing, but wait, what? That's perhaps the most insane thing that Tim Pool has ever said on his broadcast, and there is a litany of insane things that he has said. He is known to say the Supreme Court is directly at odds with the overwhelming majority of the public. They are so right-wing. They basically said that American corporations can hire child slaves. Okay? And that no such financial restitution can occur, even if said child slaves grow up and then, launch a legal case against these corporations, as long as they are done by third-party contractors that hire out the help. Also, they just talked about the Chevron deference, and Tim agreed with Sam, I thought. They are anti-union, anti-labor rights. They're anti-cleaning. They're anti-enforcement. It's ridiculous.
Economics?
So right economics to imply more like laissez-faire capitalism versus...
Oh my God, they're completely attacking the government's ability to...
Like, the Supreme Court is so right-wing that liberal justices are also often very right-wing in the decision-making when it comes to economic issues.
regulate. They're completely attacking the government and disempowering the government is basically saying, like, I mean, government is always,
That's not laissez-faire, right?
it is almost definitionally laissez-faire. Yeah.
Well, no, like allowing large corporations to have revolving door policies and protections for large corporations is not
revolving door policies? What is that? What do you mean?
like when like the CEO of Halliburton gets a job in government or something like this, right?
Well,
when there's an exchange between the government.
Laissez-faire is where you basically I mean,
Yeah, buyer
I think it's a
beware, right?
smokes. No, that's caveat emptor.
I know. That's why I'm insulting it.
Laissez-faire is where essentially, and I think it's a little bit of a smokescreen, but laissez-faire specifically means you're the government completely.
It literally means hands-free. Like, what? What does Tim think? What does Tim think that means?
Backs off and does not intervene in
Right.
what's going
And what
on.
I'm saying is I think many of these powerful elites that we would describe as right are in favor of protections for their buddies and their billionaires.
Well, the
Tax
the
breaks
reality of neoliberalism as it coming out of Mont Pelerin and the society it was ultimately about a protection racket.
Hands-free means something else. Hands off. Let it be. That's what it is. Or let
for
do.
a specific industry or specific players within an industry.
But fair point. More right word than like relative to where we are. Yes, completely agree.
No, it's just it's almost definitionally right.
Right word shift. Yeah, I think I was
mean, this
pulling
is-
hairs. You know.
Well,
but anyway, so I agree to a certain extent. I'm fairly modern on a lot of issues. I think there's got to be some push and pull. I think I'd like to see a Democratic Party.
This is my number one theory. This is more than like my nuclear doctrine. Okay, you need to understand this. This is something that I genuinely believe. It's something that I talk about all the time. I've noticed the majority of conservatives are the way they are because they don't understand basic definitions. Yes, so much of the liberals do it too. Yes, liberals are also conservative. So there are, or I'll have a lot of conservative associations or conservative leanings on certain issues. But yes, specifically modern American conservatism unironically revolves around just not knowing basic facts about most issues. Okay? It is an ideology that is built around ignorance and having no adequate puzzle pieces to like logically comprehend what is happening, and instead making up your own mind about how things are the way they are or why things are the way they are. That's all this is. It's entirely vibes based. It has it lacks facts. And that most of the conservative arguments that are presented, regardless of how intellectualized they may seem, can be dismantled with some pretty basic entry-level facts. This is precisely the reason why when Ben Shapiro, who I would say is probably one of the best conservative speakers, like one of the most like intellectually presenting conservative speakers, was actively dismantled by 25 woke college students because they were, you know, they were very knowledgeable on some of these key facts. That's it. That's it. Like, I'm reminded of the conversation that Mason had with Ben, right? Our GOAT, our warrior, our Jubilee warrior, one hand politics, where he basically was like, don't you think that the incredibly restrictive immigration process that makes it so that the average processing time for like legal pathways of migration into this country are 10 years or more makes it so that many people choose to cut the line or use illegal means to get in? But they weren't college students. Yeah, I know. I'm just sorry. Woke people. Okay. Don't get caught up on that. Some of them were college students. Others were not. But like that's it. And Ben had no answer for that. That is just like entry level reality shit, right? If you are even a little bit intellectually curious about the matter, you look into it and you're like, well, it does seem like the legal pathways of citizenship are just so unimaginably restrictive that this probably increases illegal pathways of migration for a lot of people that are seeking asylum or, you know, escaping dire circumstances back home. And if there was a legal pathway, that most people would just go through the legal means.
That provides sound regulation in key areas that matter, like we're talking about lead and water and things like this. And then I'd like to see actually any party, I don't care who does it, like it's a sound reason to be like, hey, don't dump lead and garbage in our water. But at the same time, it's also to say, hey, we should reassess what we blocked and why we blocked it. Then maybe there's some regulations.
What specifically are you talking about?
Like certain things to be deregulated.
Like what?
So the M1A, for instance, right? So I brought it to guns. My point is just in general.
What's
It's a specific example of where Democrats have regulated firearms in a way that makes literally no sense.
Okay, it makes no sense.
Do anything.
What's the downside here?
Making people felons for owning something while
How
allowing.
many of those people have been made felons by owning a
10,000? I don't know more.
10,000 felons? There are 10,000 felons in. When was this in Maryland?
You mean convicted?
No, you said felon. I'm just asking.
Right. So I'll give you an example. The pistol brace ruling, right? So when the courts ruled that pistol braces made a pistol a short-barreled rifle, I actually had to dismantle a bunch of my weapons and separate. And there was no law passed. There was no act of Congress.
That's some pussy shit, Tim. You should have been fucking defending your freedom from the ATF, brother.
Was ATF making an arbitrary decision that I was now committing felonies for simply having owned a legal product that I bought that was legal at the time. And Congress never passed this law. So now I risk prison over a nonsensical regulation.
You were talking about Democrats and
overregulating things.
But you just said that this was not a law that was passed. It was an assessment made by the courts.
No, it wasn't by the courts. It was the ATF, arbitrarily.
And
this is the Chevron ruling, that the agencies have a right to self-regulate and make their determinations. So the ATF, this is partly why people on the right were celebrating this, because the ATF was arbitrarily deciding that it was now a crime without any act of Congress. So we had to actually, I had to go dismantle.
So aside from these instances with you don't like some of these gun regulations, what other regulations do you have a problem with?
I don't know. I mean, there are certain things that I want to be regulated more than I think.
I think this is a really funny conversation to be having with respect to the ATF, because like the pistol brace ban is not in effect. I think this is the one area that like Sam is not super knowledgeable on, which is why Tim can come across like he knows what the fuck he's talking about, because the court struck it down, claiming it to be arbitrary. And that, yes, Sam has already conceded that there are oftentimes like arbitrary restrictions that are implemented by the regulatory agencies. And that is a problem. Like, I don't think that you need to be a gun pervert in general, but you know, this is the one area where like even the most basic Republican can just kind of cook up liberals and people on the left because they are such insane gun perverts that they know all of the most annoying fucking rules and restrictions. Like, I know this from living in the state of California, right? Like, California has had a pistol brace restriction or a pistol brace restriction in perpetuity. It's like kind of fucking annoying. That's why a lot of the like assault weapons, like AR platform and the like, have that like really annoying way of holding it. Like, you can't grip it. And there are like silly regulations. There are silly regulations surrounding guns in different states. Having said that, however, I think that what is like the reason why these agencies do like patchwork solutions in general and states do patchwork solutions in general is because of the endless amount of paperwork that organizations like the NRA and other like gun freedom organizations launch against each individual state, and they stop any kind of like common sense legislation at the federal level, and that we can never actually have like decent gun control. So most of this stuff is just like patchwork solutions that are easy to get around with loopholes. I think it's like it's a really stupid situation. Haas confirmed closet gun pervert. No. Pistol grip is different than the pistol brace he's crying about. He wants an SBR. Yeah, it's like a mini version. I'm a stupid leftist California gun pervert, so I know the details. A lot of these laws, especially in California, are performative, so politicians can say they pass gun control laws. Yeah, except I also do think that California, there's a reason why the state of California has significantly lower levels of gun violence than the national average, because gun control legislation, stupid or not, might actually end up, harming, might actually hurt the feelings or make it more annoying for people who enjoy shooting weapons. But the reality is, no, there are definitely performative ones. You're wrong. There are definitely performative gun control legislation. Like, I just gave you an example. I gave you an example of performative gun control legislation, like not being able to, like not having a pistol grip on an assault weapon is like literally one of those examples. The problem is the most effective way, your stream is shadow banned? No, it's not. No, we have political discourse tags now. And no, I am not shadow banned. I'm the fourth largest stream on the platform right now. That'd be crazy to consider that being shadow banned. If you're fighting with anything but a blade, you aren't a warrior. Facts. True. Doors open.
Think about in terms of
Like what?
deregulation. The lead in the water pipes is the easiest example.
Lead is actually.
And why isn't it being enforced is the question, I suppose. But
Well,
also,
it is being enforced. I mean, the
there-
problem at what
how
happened
about uranium too.
What happened in
Just so you know, your stream doesn't show on my Alexa Echo show anymore. It used to show as soon as I went on Twitch. Now I have to put in the URL. I mean, it's seemingly hasn't been successful, the shadow banning. Maybe.
In Michigan was that you had a Republican governor who wanted to basically disempower a.
You don't show up in just chatting and incognito. I mean, we can test this very quickly. Oops. Let's see. Twitch.tv/directory all in incognito. Recommended for you. Views high to low. Boom. I'm right there. Let's do, how do we do categories? Just chatting. Recommended for you. High to low. Boom. Right there. Recommended for you. I don't show up. I'm not recommended. That might be because, Twitch does not recommend me. That's understandable. It is interesting, however, that Asmongold's commentary also revolves around politics, but he's at the top of the recommended board. But I guess his type of politics is considered more permissible and not as political. Like, he probably doesn't get hit with the politics tag, but it's all good. I'm going to talk about the Trump Epstein tapes in a second. Yes, after this. Hassan, you literally do politics 10 hours a day? Yeah, I know. I'm not. Shadow ban equals not showing up and recommended. It's fine, I think.
A city that was, frankly, largely African American city, and
I think gambling should be regulated. I am no fan of the deregulation. I think what we're
but I'm specifically, I get that you have some issue with some very marginal
phthalates
gun
should
stuff.
be regulated.
But what should not be regulated? Like you said that.
Yeah, your existing cloud is what's getting people to click on your stream. All these people on here probably know you or of you, but getting newer viewers from Twitch might be harder now. It's fine. It is what it is. Even during a shadow ban, you're getting the same amount of viewers as you always do. Who cares? Doesn't matter at all. You show up and recommend it on incognito, just way down. Yeah. Yeah. Discoverability on Twitch has always been a massive issue. I don't think there is an active shadow banning, though. What will you do if politics is banned off Twitch? I don't think politics will get banned off Twitch. But I'll go somewhere else. Not being recommended as much because you're tagged as politics does not equal a shadow ban amount. I agree. Holy shit! Did an anonymous user gift 100 gifted subs? What the fuck? Yeah, I think I'll be fine, chat. I think we're good, boys. Law tip, dink doink. Another instance of conservatives not knowing how things work. All regulatory agencies must be created by an act of Congress. Congress cedes its power to these regulatory agencies when they create them via statute. Straight out of the Constitution. This is why the Looper Bright is so brain dead. This is why the Loper Bright is so brain dead, because the entire point of these agencies is to take the load off of Congress and actually tackle the issues. Mate Feed Art, thank you for the 100 gifted subs. God damn.
You have a problem with what Democrats are doing in terms of regulation.
As long as I got my Oilers, dude. As long as I got my Oilers and my subscribers, we'll be fine, I think.
Curious as to
I think that's an overestimation. I think that I would
And
I would like to
Xylax
see
with another gifted.
regulations
Holy
reassessed
shit.
and then either.
But which ones? What are you talking about?
I'm saying we should have a review of regulation in general.
So you think we should review every single regulation that exists?
I think they should have sunset clauses.
Why?
Well, because nothing's infinite, nothing's absolute. You know, we might say, for instance, okay, I'll give you an example of regulation.
Lead's always going to be bad for people.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So that one we wouldn't sunset, right?
Agreed.
Monty G, thank you for the 5 gifted.
We're talking about if we apply a regulation to a specific body or something, a body of water, perhaps. The body of water may change. So, I'll give you an example.
Balls,
we have
toxins in the water are always going to be toxic.
Which is why, like I said, I'm in favor of more regulation. And that the deregulation thing is just a safeguard on we shouldn't be making sure that we're reassessing periodically.
Why would you sunset those regulations on what is poisonous in water, for instance?
I wouldn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you just said that.
That's why I said I think it's an overestimation of. I think you may overestimate what I'm trying to say.
No.
Is that typically I think like phthalates, for instance, should be regulated. I don't believe there's a quote unquote free market solution to keeping endocrine disruptors in our food. That makes no sense.
No, I agree with that. I don't think that's controversial. But
there are regulations on things like your vehicles, your engine standards, guns, for instance. And I'm not saying I know specifically each and every regulation that should be deregulated. I think it is prudent for a society to say, hey, there's no market solution to stop people putting poison in our food. Our food has become just trash. But there is still a circumstance where we do understand that not every government application is going to be permanent or will work permanently. And I can put it a different way. There may come a point where the regulation isn't strong enough. And if we don't reassess what the law is.
Oh, I have no problem with strengthening regulations. I just, when you say deregulate or we should have regulations sunset or anything like that, I mean.
It just depends on what
you understand that, like, what we're talking about here is there is a battle between people who would profit privately.
Okay, is there a hype train happening? Am I My Bourbon Gamer, thank you for the 5 gifted. I think you guys want this real bad.
Oh my God, I will vote.
I'm sorry.
I will vote
For Donald Trump.
Oh my God, I will vote. I will vote. I will vote for Donald Trump. The people go out to vote, no fear, no more. Vote for Trump. Let's go. Vote for Trump. If you wanna keep America great, vote for Trump. Let's do it. My vote for Trump. Come on. Oh my God, I will vote.
Woke. They're woke. Okay, I gotta say something about this. Last night, I was talking to Eddie Bareback about how much of a bop this song is, how much of a banger it is. And we started singing it at the club. And because it got stuck in my head, on the way back home, I caught myself humming this in the Uber. And I had to stop myself because, like, I was worried that the Uber driver was going to think I'm a fucking Trump supporter. For Donald Trump. I'm so cooked. God bless America. I will vote. I will vote for Donald Trump. The problem is like the most like earwormy part of this song is when, you know, they say I will vote. Oh my God, I will vote for Donald Trump. And so that's the part that you sing. And then if that's the part that you sing, the average onlooker is not going to know what your fucking political perspective is. For Donald Trump. Okay. We love America just like you is such a good line. It's like it's such a funny line because it's just like, hey, racist, like we're racist too, I promise. Like, please don't think that we don't love America just because we have like a Hispanic accent. Like they're trying to get these they're trying to get the racist right wingers to be like, oh, okay. Let's continue.
And socialize the costs. In other words, put it on all of us. So you want to sell, well, let's just go back to Flint. You want to sell the, you know, you want privatize this water supply. You want to give contracts to, because this is what the Republican governor there wanted to do. And the costs associated in this instance, like, they wanted to save money by not necessarily treating the water or, by, delivering it in a way that will save them money. But the costs are socialized insofar as you've poisoned thousands of these children.
I went to Flint and I actually ran tests on the water, and it's crazy the macroeconomic issues at hand in Michigan, and what ends up with like a Republican politician is that for a lot of the people that live in the area, they're not directly impacted by what's happening to these kids, right? For people who live outside the area, they're going to see the news and they're going to say, like, how could this be?
Okay, this conversation is going nowhere. Let's get to the Russia stuff, okay?
That thing or not?
Apparently, it starts around here.
And after the Qatar-Turkey pipeline fails, what ends up happening is Russia, Iran, and Turkey started cutting a deal with to run a pipeline from the same gas
See, what
field.
was also problematic about Trump getting out of the Iran nuke deal unilaterally in that respect, right? Because we have now pushed Iran further away into that sphere of influence.
As it pertains to the gas trade-offs and the conflicts in Europe, I don't know. I wouldn't know enough. I can say that even during Obama, Stuxnet was probably a really bad idea. You're familiar with Stuxnet?
Yeah, that was Israel.
Israel and the United States teamed up to create a virus that blew up centrifuges in Iran, which act of war much. I'm surprised it didn't escalate in a dangerous way.
I mean, but fortunately, one of the best things that Obama did was to make that nuke deal. Let me ask you this, since you bring up Russia.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that you have to put some type of disclaimer because of the whole tenant thing, or no?
No. I never received money from Russia. We never were given any money to create anything. Tenant Media and
it was all laundered through Tenant Media. I mean, obviously you didn't get you weren't getting paid in rubles.
So I can try. Right. I'll keep it real simple. You have sponsors on your show. Did you ever ask who their investors are? Did you?
The sponsors?
Yeah, like a company comes to you and says, we want to, have you shout us out or something. Do you like look into their financiers? Do you dig through their bank accounts?
I mean, we get it all from media brokers, but they weren't advertising on your show. They were,
no, it was
they were paying you a license deal.
A license fee.
Yeah.
So I licensed to Nat Geo. I never asked them who their investors were.
Who, National Geographic?
Yeah.
National Geographic was taking Tim Pool's videos. There's no way, right? What the fuck? what the fuck could he possibly sell them? Like, what would National Geographic syndicate from like the Tim Pool show?
When I license through like all these other big distributors, someone comes to me, they say, we want a license. It goes to our lawyer comes back, says, here's the agreed upon fee. I say, thank you and have a nice day. And then we move on.
So was it just Ruben who asked who Gerard Depardieu or whatever that guy's name was?
I don't know.
Gerard Depardieu. Catching strays. French cinematic actor Gerard Depardieu catching a random stray in this conversation, in this debate, is not something that I thought was going to happen. Okay.
What Dave did or anybody else did?
Did you ask about who that guy was?
Absolutely. And you know what's crazy is...
Well, wait a second. Why did you ask about who that guy was?
Wanted to know. Isn't that due diligence?
Yeah, but you just said you don't ask who the investors are.
No, I said, do you? Like, do you dig into all of these things?
I've never actually been approached with anything even remotely like that.
So when I got reached out to like by Discovery and Nat Geo, I said, I'm familiar with what this is. It's whatever.
Yeah, no. If I mean,
new company
I
based out of
licensed my
Tennessee.
show to Peacock, and
Right, you know what they are.
well, yeah. I mean, National Geographic is a well-known thing. But if somebody comes in and says like, we're going to give you that kind of money for your programming, I'd be like,
How much money do you make on
who
Majority
the
Report?
fuck is that?
How much money do you make on Majority Report?
How much do I make from on our revenue from the whole show?
All of it, 100%.
I mean, it's six
Six figures a month
figures revenue. Yeah,
per month.
yeah.
Damn.
So why were you?
Six figures. Yeah.
So you're over 100K per month on Majority Report.
I think, well, I mean, some months. I mean, certainly the past couple of months have been really good. Some months are a little bit less.
I think you do a majority. I don't know about your other channels, but you do about 20 million per month in views.
Other channels?
Like, I don't know if you have other shows. I'm saying
no.
Majority Report does about 20 million.
That's it.
And with 20 million views per month, you do over six figures.
We had 20 million views for 2 months this year.
If you do 20 million views per month, I think is your YouTube metric.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit less now, but okay.
Oh yeah. If a company came to you and wanted to license the show, which would
I can tell you, Peacock licensed a Majority Report we were on Peacock for a year.
you want to say what they gave you?
I will tell you this. From what I read, you made more in a month than we made in a year.
Maybe that's just bad business on your part, I guess.
Maybe.
So,
Or maybe it turns out that they were just a company who had metrics as opposed to like we're trying to get propaganda.
no, I think.
See, I have a theory
So I
about
can
this.
tell you how much money we make at this company, right?
I would imagine it's millions.
Million per month, maybe.
Okay. That's,
So when a company comes to me and says, we want to have you, who makes, as a company, $1 million a month, a show in which we will have a non-exclusive distribution, but takes the branding, then we're going to say, in 1 or 2 years, how much do we make on this show per month? Well, it's in excess of 400,000.
this was a new show. This was this show, right?
So there's a few caveats. This channel is my first channel. It's got 1.35 million subscribers. It used to be my biggest channel where I would routinely get 500,000 to 1 million per video, or maybe like 600.
Do you believe Tim's show makes $1 million a month? I wouldn't be shocked. Right wingers have incredibly deep pockets. Like, I wouldn't be shocked about that. Like because there are no restrictions. They do the shittiest ads. They take as many ads as possible. They have financiers as well on top of everything else. And they say left grifting is profitable. Yeah, I know. They say that because there is that is also a part of the right-wing grifting, to be like, left-wing grifting is so profitable. Except everyone that wants to make more money ends up turning right-wing, weirdly enough, either on certain issues or across the board. But like right-wing content right-wing content is catnip for the algorithm. That much is also true. Like, it sucks. It's just the reality, right? Like there is not really anything you can do about it either. Like these algorithms unironically boost right-wing shit like crazy. Like Patrick Bet David, I am currently, as it stands, I think 400. I just looked up my social blade stats. 457th in the news rank in the country. I'm the largest left-wing content creator, like in North America, largest progressive content creator in North America, and there is like, I'm nowhere near close in terms of like how much more. How many more unimaginably successful right-wing content creators are. And when there is more, or when there are even more right-wing content creators, there's more, you get boosted in the algorithm. Like the fact that there are a shit ton of channels like that makes it, the fact that there are a shit ton of channels such as that, like right-wing channels, also boost other right-wing content creators as well. So I don't think it's that crazy that he makes $1 million. But the reason why he's mentioning the Russian, like the payments that he got, is to be like, oh, well, I'm so successful that like, of course it makes sense that they would give me, like some random company would give me, you know, $1 million a month to just like license out my content. The problem, on the other hand, is that you were also saying stuff like Ukraine is the enemy of mankind and shit. So like, where did that come from? Like, it almost feels like you did know that you were getting paid by Russia and were changing your commentary specifically for that.
100,000 per video on certain shows. And then we're talking about doing a show like this where you'll get, you know, you have 1,000,000 subscribers. I've got 1 million+ subscribers, or with the other channels, it's big names coming, doing these debates tends to attract a lot of sponsorship. So
you had any other deals like this?
Yes.
Oh, you have had other deals like this.
So,
because I seem to remember you saying to Emma that you had not, that it was just all from members, or you didn't have any like backing.
Sponsors. There's no backers, right? It's
a license deal is not a sponsorship. Like, I mean, I have sponsors.
Sales.
Like I have. Well, it's different.
No one has come to this company. Let's clarify.
Hello Tushy comes and says we want to sell bidets.
Here's the difference.
I do an ad, but I don't have a license.
No one has come to my companies, plural, and said I will give you X in exchange for X in terms of the production of content or a stake in the company. We have no investors. We have no backing. We have sales.
Have you had other license deals like that? I'm not talking about a sponsor. Tenet Media was not a sponsor.
It was a non-exclusive distribution license.
Yeah, it was a license deal. Yeah. No, I get that.
So
have you had other license deals like that?
Yes. And so this is not
with who? Is it another? I mean, I'm just curious.
Well, I gotta wait because some of these deals are still in contract negotiations, so I can't.
Oh, so you didn't have any prior to the Tenet, or you did?
I have licensed content to big networks. We have explicitly and on a low scale.
Prior to this, you had licensed it to other big networks.
I'm confused as what I have licensed my content to other big networks
prior to the Tenet deal.
Yes.
Oh,
and we also
what were those networks?
So like Nat Geo and Discovery when they hired me for content.
No, I'm talking about these shows. I'm not talking about when you were, I'm talking about the whole TimCast world.
Before Tenet, there were 3 negotiations currently taking place, and I can't say too much because I can't violate other contracts. Offers were made.
You're not supposed to tell who you're licensing to?
When you are in contract negotiations, first, you don't go out and just say, hey, guess what this company's offering me right now?
No, of course not. Of course not. I'm not asking what you're in negotiations for the future. I'm saying prior
All right, so let me finish. Yes.
Prior to Tenet Media,
okay,
had you had any other license deals?
License deals presented that were comparable, and one was chosen.
Okay,
and some are ongoing.
So you never had any other deals. People had proposed them to you, but you'd never
with
signed
higher rates. We were offered more money from other companies.
and you went with Tenet
Yes.
for a license deal.
I was offered a license agreement for comparable. I try to keep it vague, I guess, because
So just to be clear, you never signed another deal before Tenet. You had never had a license deal prior to that as TimCast.
no. Okay, look. Yes, I did. I said it like 5 times now.
Oh,
I've licensed content to a ton of networks.
I was just curious as to what networks those were. I don't know why you're getting so upset.
Because I've said it 5 times. You keep asking the same question over and over again.
Wait, no, he didn't. He just said Nat Geo.
You said Nat Geo, and
So I've licensed content to like Discovery, Net Geo, and then there's media buyers who
but
do
not
general-
as TimCast. Not
Yes, just quite literally as TimCast from this channel.
Damn,
Oh,
he's
really,
getting
dude?
fucking
That's-
hella mad. Bro, yo, chill. This is supposed to be a reasonable, dare I say, friendly discussion. You asked Sam Seder about how much money he fucking makes every month, and he responded kindly. He didn't fucking start yelling. Why is he getting so defensive? Goddamn.
Geo. Okay.
Yes, and I've even appeared on their networks. So I can say it a million times. We were dealing with negotiations. We give the deal to our lawyers. Our lawyers come back and say, looks good. And then we start,
Okay.
the show already existed.
Yeah. No, I never thought that you were in the bag for. Well, I mean, I never
Russia's a
thought
bunch
they
of
were
scumbags.
telling you what to do. I just thought it was.
I think the funniest question should be, in this circumstance, do you think it's the patriotic thing to take all the money that you've gotten from the Russian government, as the FBI correctly pointed out, and give it to Ukrainian charities? Do you feel like that would be the patriotic thing to do? Take all of the money that the Russian government has given you. Do you feel like that would be the right, appropriate thing to do? And give it directly to Ukrainian charities, especially after you called Ukraine the enemy of mankind. I would want to know what his answer to that would be. I think that'd be funny.
Was a lot of money to be getting, and not asking who Gerard Depardieu was, or whatever the guy's name, Gregorian.
So the issue I think is worthy of clarification is, like, you yourself make 6 figures a month on your show.
Well, that's our revenue of the show. I don't make that.
Right, the revenue of this show and otherwise, like, $1 million doesn't go in my pocket every month, but we have staff and we have employees, and so it's around there. So when a company comes, and we had several, and they say, "This is huge," we had a $30
Are
million
you back in
offer.
negotiations with those people?
Yes,
I would imagine.
especially considering
It feels like you've had to, like, what was this whole thing? Were you shutting down the show? Or
that's exactly what I was going to say. Right, like, I can't be the CEO, the principal talent, and a dad. It's already difficult to do.
maybe I'm not such a bad businessman.
Maybe you're a good dad.
I got 2 kids, and but whatever. That's it.
Well, so like, I've got to record 4 shows today. And that's an impossibility with a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like last week, I'm like, I can keep doing the morning show because that will keep me occupied.
You
Until
shut down your news operation too, didn't you?
Scanner is still in operation, but it's like,
Didn't you have like a news like a website or something?
yeah, we still do. And so there was we did TimCast News for a while, and then we had another company called Scanner that we are trying to get off the ground, and it's still there, but we're in a holding pattern. Content is still being produced for Scanner, but we have to figure out, like, here's the reality, man. News articles, the news media is a very, very difficult thing to monetize.
Very tough. Very tough.
You can write articles all day and night. You can send reporters on the ground, which we do, and then figuring out how to make that sustainable is incredibly difficult. And it gets to that point where, we can't. But I will say, in regards to what happened Monday last week, oh yeah, one of the offers we got was $30 million. And it comes with caveats. And so we go to these other companies and say, what are your terms? What are your offers? What are your terms? What are your offers? And then ultimately Tenet was we were like, we'll go with them. That's whatever. We go to our lawyer goes through it. We say, all
So
right.
Tenet didn't pay $30 million.
No.
Sounds like they paid a hefty amount. I mean, if you're Dave Rubin, what do you think about that? Like, I mean, if you're Dave Rubin and somebody says, we're going to give you $100,000 a video, doesn't that like make you go like, what's up with this?
No, because what's interesting in the indictment is you can see that independent of each other, several people made the same negotiations. A lot of this goes through agents, and agents go to a market standard rate when you're negotiating.
I mean,
with
I
companies.
understand. I mean, I've dealt with agents, but I mean, if
But you
somebody-
don't set your price. I mean, your agent's going to tell you what you're going to be able to get from something, right? Or do you go to your agent? You could go to your agent and say, I'll only do the job for this amount. I get it. But you
There's, in my mind, very little shot that Tim did not know that he was getting paid by Russia. I do not. I'm sorry. Like, there is just no. Like, there. No. No. Especially because of that famous clip. Like, that clip alone to me is like, that's, you know, like this is it, brother. This is pretty.
Ukraine, and they know it. But I don't know that it matters anymore. This is psychotic. Ukraine is the enemy of this country.
Like,
Ukraine is our enemy, being funded by the Democrats. I will stress this again. One of the greatest enemies of our nation right now is Ukraine. They are expanding this war. Now, don't get me wrong. I know you've got criminal elements of the U.S. government pushing them and guiding them and telling them what to do. Ukraine is now accused, a German warrant issued for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, triggering this conflict. Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and to the world. We should rescind.
Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and the world. Ukraine is the greatest threat to the nation and the world. That is insane, dude. Like,
end all funding and financing, pull out all military support, and we should apologize to Russia.
I didn't even. We should apologize to Russia. We should apologize to Russia for invading Ukraine. Like, as you guys know, I have had, I would say, a fairly reasonable, fairly rational take on trying to find a long-standing, peaceful solution to the unjustifiable, immoral, barbaric invasion of Ukraine conducted by the Russian government. And it's like, and yet, of course, many people have said time and time again that I am pro-Russia over and over again. Those people have never really listened to what I have to say, I think, because if you have ever listened to me talk about Russia's invasion of Ukraine, I have consistently maintained the position that it is completely unacceptable. This is the most insane thing I've ever heard. We must apologize to Russia. Like, come on, dude. That is incredible stuff.
Usually, there's, it's going to be like, look, this is the kind of job that's going to pay in a range of here. The company's got this much. Here's what you're going to be able to get for it. So, for instance, like 500,000 views might be $10,000 in ads, right?
Okay.
That's market standard. So if you're talking CPM and I call like an ad sales guy and they say, hey, this company wants to sponsor you, you get 500,000 on the show. They're going to give you $10,000. I can say, Right. That's the market range. And so then I might try and argue a premium and be like, well, I'm Tim Pool, so I think you should give me 15. And then they'll come back and say no.
We're not talking about sponsorships.
We're talking about the value of a license agreement where a company would have the ability to run sponsorships
Right.
on their end.
Right.
So if we're talking about, say, TimCast IRL in the morning show, which we do around $1 million in revenue per month, then a comparable show is going. You're going to say this when you're licensing a show. If we run the show by ourselves for a year or two, then here's how much we're going to generate in sponsorships, memberships, et cetera, by the end of year 2, 3, 4, and 5. If we do a license deal, we jump the gun. We generate lesser revenue than we would in the long term, but it closes the gap sooner.
No, I get it. I
then there's
understand why you would take it. I would take that money if somebody came to me and offered that, but I would be like, wait, what's going on here?
But you would be, I mean, we have 3 different companies coming at us. They're all known American enterprises. I mean, I will say one thing too, like Lauren Chen's was working at the Blaze. You know what I mean? This is not like some strange person appeared out of nowhere.
Raises questions to me about
Was that
where
the Blaze?
I mean,
yeah.
I think, it's quite clear to me that, there was reports about like, in the run up to the election, George Santos was on a Zoom call where people were getting paid at least $20,000 to put out stuff that Kamala Harris was a slut on their social media and stuff like that. And I'm like, I've been doing this for 20 years, and it's not a huge amount of competition on the left. Nobody's ever offered me $5 to do anything like that.
Let me let you in on the secret. This has been true for a long time. So your revenue for Majority Report, is it largely YouTube based, or do you do like ad reads as well?
It's ad reads, it's members, it's YouTube.
You have YouTube programmatic, so do we. Like programmatic ads means like your YouTube channel will show you how much you made from YouTube's ads.
Yes.
So Russia can go on your YouTube channel through Google Ads and put $10,000 a month into your channel without you knowing.
Okay.
And you'd have no way to track or control any of that. So this.
It's okay. This
does happen though, where.
So this in and of itself is not an appropriate argument because the responsibility is in the hands of YouTube, to ensure that this does not happen. And they do already have protections against that sort of thing. You got directly paid for your content and maybe even the actual contents of your content. Oh shit. I got lost in the sauce here. I was supposed to have Edinger Mentum on to talk about the polls, and then I forgot. We'll get back to this stuff in a second, but let's talk to Edinger Mentum. To that level of like being into politics is unwise, I think. But hey, do you? I won't stop you. Anyway, we're now going to get back to the Tim Pool, Sam Seder debate, while I go pee really quickly, and then we'll move on to some more news. Obviously, we have Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump tapes, which I think are crazy, and a lot more to cover today. So
companies, politicians will use some kind of special interest, and you can run an ad for any product you want, which is the crazy thing.
Well, yeah, this is what Trump is doing with his watches, right? Like, I'm going to sell 147 watches at whatever it was, 10 grand a pop. And it's basically a way for people to launder money to him because it's like, all right, I just bought a watch. And that's basically it. And so he knows.
You're allowed to buy watches.
Maybe
we should regulate politicians selling products during elections.
I think that would be a great idea. And maybe while they're president as well. But I know
I bought his shoes.
What's that?
I bought his shoes. We were skating in them. Let's talk about like abortion or something. I don't know. Or Israel.
We can talk about Israel if you want. I mean, I'm of the mind of what we're doing is obscene, and I'm unhappy about it. And I feel like we have two options. One is horrible, and the other one's worse.
I agree.
In terms of these governments. I mean,
do you think we should cut off funding, pull out, and just be done with it?
Well, I think that we should condition aid to Israel. I mean, I think that we should, if we have leverage in any type of situation, we should exercise that leverage. In terms of Ukraine, we had a treaty with them when they gave up nukes in '93, saying that we would protect them in the event of
Was it a
of
treaty?
Russian aggression. Well, or an agreement.
Right. And the legal distinction matters, I suppose, because
Well, I mean, it matters in terms of like how perhaps.
bilateral security agreement.
I mean, that's you can refer to it as just a bilateral security agreement, and I think that there's.
Oh no, it wasn't even that. The Budapest Memorandum.
I mean, I think that this was operational. It's not obviously a treaty. Treaties can be broken. We saw that with Paris Accords and well, it's easier obviously if it's a treaty. It needs to be we need to bring the Senate in, but I am I think that aid that we provide for Ukraine should have an exit strategy to it. I haven't seen one, but I also am not convinced that that's been a function of the election.
Haven't we spent more on Ukraine in the past 2 years than we have on Israel in 50?
I don't
Or
know.
comparable?
Probably comparable, I think, at this
That's
point.
crazy to me. And it's fair to point out too, like we're not just giving all the money overseas. We make weapons here, and then it has American
100%.
weapons jobs.
Yes, 100%.
Wow, Tim Pool's analysis on Ukraine is the greatest threat to mankind has changed quite dramatically. That's weird. I wonder if something significant happened since the last time I watched Tim Pool when he said those words to now he sees a silver lining in the weapons transfers to Ukraine and its impact on the American economy even. What a shocking change of events. Probably nothing happened, right? Like nothing consequential happened in Tim Pool's life, I think, that would have caused them to take this different approach. Like he's starting to come across to me like a real Lindsey Graham type. I haven't been keeping up with Tim Pool. Is there a reason? Because like the last time I saw him, he had such good ideas on Ukraine being the enemy of not only America but the mankind. Seems to me he's seeing the silver lining here.
There's no doubt in my mind that we spend far too much money. So much of our economy is dependent. Eisenhower said, beware the military industrial complex, and his original wording was the congressional military industrial complex. And I subscribe to that. I do think from a moral standpoint, although I don't think this is controlling, but as a moral standpoint, obviously like one country is being invaded and to some extent occupied, and the other is occupying and completely asymmetrical type of situation, that we have in Israel is just absurd.
I kind of feel like no matter what course we take, the dominoes have been knocked over. The BRICS nations are lining up for their currency. The petrodollar is on the verge of being dismantled. Saudi Arabia has already said not interested. I don't think Trump recovers that. And I think that means Americans better buckle up for a bumpy ride.
I mean, to be fair, you've also said that we're headed towards a civil war in this country so many, many times, and I don't think that's happening.
Well, that's not my opinion. That's just the corporate press. I think it was...
it's not your opinion that we're headed into?
Oh my God. I accidentally snorted a piece of chicken into my nose. That's not his opinion? I think Tim Pool has talked about a civil war being imminent more than anything else. Like, if there is one way to, like, summarize the most consistent talking point that Tim Pool has repeated over and over again, it is the fact that it's happening, and it's happening right now, and it's going to happen tomorrow, and it's happening yesterday.
to a civil war, or
It
hasn't
is not.
been?
It is not an original idea from Tim Pool that we're on track for a civil war.
Well,
Though
I mean,
Tim
do
Pool
either one of us
agrees.
have any original ideas? I mean, I didn't come up with single payer.
No, but just to clarify, my position is I didn't one day just decide for no reason, oh man, I think a civil war is coming. It was like, here we go, Common Dreams. This is a progressive organization. Here you go. The second civil war has already begun. This is a progressive outlet, right? So when I read progressives, conservatives, The Atlantic,
I think that's more metaphorical, but if you want to claim that
Sure.
you did not mean that there was an actual civil war,
I do.
that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do think there's going to be a civil war?
10 years, 20 years? I mean, what?
What?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you like? So we can talk about it. We can go in great detail. For instance, we had a former CIA officer at the write for the Washington Post. The U.S. is on the verge of a civil war. I didn't just make it up. The Atlantic said that they spoke with several national security experts.
Well, there's people also saying that the Earth is flat, but you know,
do they work for the Democratic establishment?
Well, sometimes maybe. I
There's
don't know.
flat earthers in the
saying-
Democratic Party at the top level.
I don't know.
Come on.
I'm saying
Like former CIA comes out and says they're concerned, like we are following the trend of other countries towards civil war. I take that seriously. I don't know why I would dismiss like all of these people. A Princeton professor, for instance, said the same thing back in 2018, I think. So when you maybe it's sensationalism.
I think
that's fair.
I think to a certain extent it's like, you know, yes, there were people who said like crime has increased exponentially, but in fact it hadn't. I mean, I think, you know, part of what you and I do is we make assessments as to what news is actually sort of like real and what really has real world.
Tim Pool looks at credentials and laughs at them when it's like a person who's like, I've done vaccine research at the highest level and I am a well-decorated epidemiologist and I am warning you, we need to, take COVID seriously. He'd be like, that guy's gay. Obviously, you can't trust credentialed people like this. Tim Pool, when it's civil war, he's like, excuse me, high-level CIA officer who is managing the Civil War department said that it's happening. Yeah. Only when they're engaging in sensationalist rhetoric that they believe, that Tim Pool believes, then he's on board.
Implications for people, and part of what we do is assess that like these things don't, and it's a distraction.
I think you're wrong. I think there's an optimism and a normalcy bias. And the only thing I can really say is, look, I read the news and I opine on it, and I'm wrong about a lot. But I can probably pull up, I don't know, a couple hundred articles from CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, talking about the brink of civil war that is coming to this country that I just did not make up one day. So if I read the New York Times,
These are all right-wingers.
the New York Times,
Ross Douthat.
Oh, sure,
it's an
sure.
opinion piece.
yeah, of course. CNN, you've got Bruce Hoffman, Jacob Ware, Straight Arrow News, I don't know, but there's a poll saying people think we're on the verge of a civil war. The Princeton professor, progressive guy, said the cold civil war has already begun. This is back in 2018. And I look at all these things and I say the worldview of each faction in the United States is divided to a degree that there seems to be no reconciliation. And so now what you have is sitting members of Congress calling for a national divorce, which means nothing. It means civil war. But that was Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean,
She's a lunatic.
we'll call it whatever you want, but when a member of Congress is saying something like this, would you?
Oh, I have no doubt. Listen,
do you think if lunatics get elected, we could see?
Okay. Marjorie Taylor Greene also said Jews have space lasers, dude. To be fair, Tim Pool probably agrees with that too. So, like, she said Jewish space lasers were responsible for the fucking wildfires in California. She says a lot of shit, dude. Oh my God, I forgot. She also says that the government has a weather machine. Yeah. Oh God, she says so many insane shit.
See a civil war?
I have no doubt that we have a crop of right-wing Republican lawmakers who are completely nuts. I think that
what
the
about January
American
6th?
What about January 6th?
Do you think a January 6th type event could result in this country reaching civil war?
You mean have they been successful? And
let's to kind of depoliticize it. Let's say January 6, 2025, politician X wins. It could be whoever. I don't know. Let's say let's for the sake of your politics. Let's say Trump loses, and then Trump supporters storm the Capitol once again. This time taking the.
Do you really think? Wait a second. 'Cause this is really an important distinction. Do you really think that the likelihood of a mass of Democrats, Democratic voters, would go in and attack the Capitol in the way that
You
we
mean
saw?
like they did on May 29th, 2020?
You're talking about like BLM?
When they firebombed the White House and forced the president to an emergency bunker and set fire to St. John's Church, injuring hundreds of police officers?
Oh, you're talking about the protests out there? You mean after there was a peaceful protest before the cops moved in?
Regardless of why it happened.
Well,
Like, do I think
people
the far
striking
left
back?
will firebomb the White House? They did 4 years ago.
Wait a second. One was an assault.
Dude, there's something so funny about the president at the time in his lame duck session refusing to follow regular process and creating an insurrection, albeit a very funny one because it was the most like diabetic insurrection of all time. Comparing that to like mass protests all around the country that the Democratic Party actively was like renouncing at the time, or I mean denouncing at the time. It's just like I will forever fucking say January 6th was funny because it was. Like I understand why people are fearful of January 6th because like if it was competent, if there was like a real brown shirt militia movement in this country, then that would have been like absolutely devastating. But in the absence of all of those things, like and no like ideologically principled fascist movement, it's just all like you're never gonna tell me that watching a bunch of HVAC business owners trying to climb up the fucking congressional wall and falling is the funniest thing you could have ever seen. It would have been better if the police were like actually there. You know what I mean? And then we could have seen like enforcement in real time. That probably would have made it so that it never happened. Like Ashley Babbitt would probably still be alive right now, running for like their fucking local comptroller of San Diego or some shit if the actual cops were doing their fucking policing job. And by that I mean not what was I saying? Oh, the actual cops were, you know, at the January 6th protest on the side of the protesters. I mean, like if there were cops in uniform stopping the protests from coming in.
On the Capitol.
I don't
The
care what you
other
call it.
is people, well, words have meaning. They
So
describe events.
When leftists injure 100 cops, tear down barricades, throw fire bombs at the
Wait,
White
wait,
House.
wait. But you're sequencing things differently. If Donald Trump was to send the military to attack, let's say, New York City, do I think that we would have a civil war? Yes. Do I think that New York City
Do you think
would,
he could? Do you think there's a possibility Trump would send the military into any one of these Democrat districts?
I mean, I don't know. Well, I mean, he claims he would.
Do you think he would? Or do you fear he would?
I fear that he would attempt to do it, but I suspect.
Do you think he would try to start a civil war?
Well, I didn't say he would try and start a civil war, but I
That
think
would
he
start a civil war.
Well,
Or could?
I think it could, but
Do
I
you
don't
think there's a
the-
possibility civil war is facing the sound in a year?
No. I don't think the military would allow for that, frankly.
National Guard, or it's like, do you think they would disobey Donald Trump?
I think you'd get a series of resignations. Possible, I guess, that at one point, but
Someone eventually is going to
if
say yes, right?
if your argument is that the rise of Donald Trump could bring about a civil war, I mean,
I don't know that I would say the rise of Donald Trump. I think Trump's a symptom. I think that the reason Trump gets elected is because you have this rage bubbling up in this country in a variety of ways. So you had the Tea Party and you had Occupy Wall Street, which were rather light. But then you get the Bernie Sanders movement, you get the Trump populist movement. But Trump is a bull, and he storms through and he takes the power. Bernie didn't.
But I mean, what's they're saying this because they're both populist movements? I mean, one's a right-wing authoritarian movement.
Call it whatever you want. People rose up and had movements for whatever reason. And perhaps you could say because Trump is a strong man, he ended up succeeding in his movement where Bernie's did not.
Well, I mean, No, Bernie Sanders was
Like Hillary
completely-
Clinton's the authoritarian, and she stomped out Bernie.
No, Hillary Clinton is not an authoritarian. I mean, I don't like her politics, but authoritarian it's a word. It means something.
Yeah.
And right-wing authoritarians. I mean, there's been, you could check out Bob Altemeyer's research, formerly from the University of Manitoba. Like there's clinical research that shows that we have like something like 25% of North America are right-wing authoritarians, and they were just looking for a leader. And the Republican Party has been stoking racial animus for decades now, and this is where
that
the
lead to Civil
culmination.
War.
I mean,
So
it certainly did, 200 years ago, but I think that the likelihood of civil war is low relative to the amount of times that you talk about it.
Well, I think it would require you to see what I talk. Like, should I not opine on the Atlantic saying, quote, there's people that are absolutely ready to take on a civil war? What will happen if Trump loses from 1 week ago? I mean, if I address that and I say something like, I think it's silly to assume that within the next few months, people are going to start a civil war, is that a bad thing to do?
Dog, that's not how you opine on it. That's an opinion piece itself. You are literally pointing to that piece to say it's silly in the argument where you're trying to justify that it's not silly to say that a civil war is likely. Does Tim Pool hear the arguments that he's making? Am I misunderstanding him? Why has he so consistently, dunked on his own argument, it seems, or dunked on his own past behavior while simultaneously seemingly defending his own past behavior? I don't understand it.
Or should we just ignore it?
I mean, I think it's just indicative of like what you consider the news is, and I think that's
Why are they all writing about it?
well, because they have the same problem that you did with your news outlet, is they can't get clicks.
Do you think the only reason all of these outlets, I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that I just pulled up from a quick Google search, it's just they're getting clicks for it?
Yes.
I'm not, it's not a gotcha. I mean, literally, it's just sensational.
The answer is yes. Yes.
I mean, I think when you think about the original,
I'm thinking from my own personal experience. I've been covering the news professionally for the past decade, and I can't recall a single time where I was like, a civil war is imminent. Like maybe as a joke, as a meme, in a haha moment, but like never. Like I often talk about how awful American politics is. Like so frequently, so consistently. I talk about the dangers of like misinformation, the dangers of a right-wing reactionary sentiment in this country. And I don't think there's ever been a fucking moment where I'm like, yeah, civil war is imminent, dude. Like I just don't. Like the only way that it happens is if, we experience an unimaginable economic shock. And even then, I don't think it's that likely. And with no recovery measures whatsoever implemented. Like it would mean the entire global economy has to collapse. There is a reason why January 6th was fucking goofy. There is a reason why January 6th was goofy as fuck. Because Americans are far too comfortable.
Civil War, there was a huge economic investment in on the two different sides, right? One side wanted free labor, and the other side, aside from having other economic interests too, that wasn't aligned with having free labor. I don't think we have that same division here. Does that
Do we
mean-
need to follow 1861 or 54 for a civil war to happen? Or is it possible to look at, say, the Bolsheviks, the Spanish Civil War, the French Revolution, the British Civil War?
I think it is unlikely in this country that we would have a civil war. Do I think that we could have, sort of like a constitutional crisis with someone like Donald Trump and the Republican Party? Yes, I do.
So academics right now believe that we are in what's called civil strife. Civil strife does not guarantee civil war, but it is the precursor to. So the civil rights era was a period of civil strife that did not result in a civil war. Bleeding Kansas was civil strife that did result
in
a
the
civil war.
80s, we had something like 100 bombings, maybe 75 bombings, that would, I mean, you know, various
Civil
sort of-
strife. It comes
Yeah.
and goes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you've got Stephen Marsh, who wrote the book The Next Civil War. He's a liberal guy. He makes a lot of these predictions. I defer to him. I think he's wrong on a lot of his fact assessments in the granular scope of things, but he makes a lot of points that are correct. So we actually had this debate. I think it was it last week actually on civil war, conflict, and crisis. And one of the things I have to bring up is people try and look at the 1861 Civil War as if we must follow that trend for civil war to occur, when in fact it's rare that you actually get civil war. In that
What would you
regard.
do to stop this civil war?
Tell people not to do it, to go out and vote, to believe in the system, to vote for who you think is going to help bring accountability to this country,
Do you think
denounce and
there's no
reject
difference
violence.
in terms of the parties as to which one could bring about that could bring about a civil war?
I think both
do you
parties
think
hold
that
the
it's-
potential for it.
Do you think that like Kamala Harris would,
Takes two to tango.
well, actually,
Oh my
it takes two
god!
to tango.
Oh
because
my
a tango
god,
is-
bro! I swear, Republicans don't live on the same planet, dude. No. Kamala Harris is parading fucking Liz Cheney around and saying she's gonna have a Republican in her fucking cabinet. Like your brain has to be the size of a walnut to legitimately say it takes two to tango. Kamala Harris could very, very well bring about a civil war just as likely as Donald Trump. Is like, dude, come on. Your brain is pudding. It's tapioca pudding. That is so insane. Democrats don't even have like a messaging campaign that is against Republican policies, let alone that they would like actively urge to fight Republicans in the fucking streets. They don't even fight them in debates, dude. They hug them and kiss them in debates.
a very intricate dance, but it doesn't take two people to start a war. I mean,
It does.
No, it doesn't. I mean,
What do you mean?
well, it doesn't take two people to start a war.
So if country A invades country B, but country B just surrenders immediately, there's no war.
Well, obviously, people
War is a fight.
pushing. Yeah, I mean, I guess
it
in
could
that-
be more than two, like Syria, for instance. I think there was like 12 factions in the initial.
Well, tango, both parties are like engaged in the dance. But the fact of the matter is that you can go in and yes, you can invade. It's war, even if they surrender after people getting shot. Do you think that like Kamala Harris? Let me put it this way: who's more likely to bring out the military against the city between Harris and Trump?
Trump didn't do it in 2020. I don't know if I have a good answer.
You don't have an opinion on this?
I don't.
Trump didn't do it. What the fuck are you talking about? Yes, he did. He did. He sent Bortak. Trump used the marshals, federal marshals, to assassinate a guy who killed a Nazi in Portland. And then he fucking flexed. He was like, yep, I told him, go kill this guy. And then they did. What are we talking about? Trump, when Donald Trump says he's going to use the military against enemies from within, I believe it. I don't think that is him embellishing. I don't think that's him exaggerating at all. Why do I believe it? Because he's done basically everything but that in his last administration. That's the one thing that remains. And at the time, Senator Tom Cotton was advocating to do just that. So there are people in his coalition, in his corner, that also want him to do that. At the time, they wrote about it in the New York Times. Tom Cotton wrote an article, a guest column in the New York Times.
I don't know if I have a good enough answer to say.
Well, I'll take whatever answer you I mean, you don't
When
have
Trump
an opinion.
was presented with national riots, he did not invoke the Insurrection Act. He didn't send out the military. I'm not confident he has the strength, and I don't mean that in a positive way.
Who would be
like
more
the
inclined to
guts.
do it?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
You don't have an opinion on it.
I mean, I think it's
You're so disingenuous, Tim.
bait to be like Trump's the authoritarian, therefore he would, when he didn't do it. So the Democrats didn't do it at the Capitol. Trump didn't do it at the Capitol. Trump didn't do it in 2020. The National Guard was deployed by Democrats during the Ferguson riots. Could I make the argument that Democrats are more likely for that reason? I honestly have no idea.
Would you make that argument?
I wouldn't. I'd say there's pros and cons to make a guess as to who you think would be more likely to bring out the National Guard or invoke the Insurrection Act. Honestly, I don't know. What I will say is, it doesn't matter what you think is true. And
Mark Milley apparently, and I don't know.
Well, so-
Mark Milley is someone that you would trust, but he basically said that Trump told him to just shoot the rioters.
I mean, Hillary Clinton said, "We came, we saw, he died. Why don't you drone strike Julian Assange?" So Barack Obama killed Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki.
Wait. Yeah, no. I agree that Obama, those drone strikes were very problematic, but that's different than saying we're going to willy-nilly fire into protesters.
What I'm pointing out is that I'm not going to tell you your opinions are wrong and you should not have them. That's not the point of what I'm getting at with civil war. My point is you believe them, and you are allowed to believe them, and that's fine by me.
I'm just curious as to who you think. I mean,
don't
if you
trust
think
any
that
of
there's
these
The Anwar al-Awlaki conversation is so stupid because, one, that's a war crime. Okay, it is a unimaginable expansion of the powers of the presidency, and it was straightforward a war crime, an extrajudicious killing of an American citizen in the hands of the American state, which is what Obama did. The thing is, Donald Trump killed his sister. So what are you saying right now? Like everything that you could point to with respect to Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama, who I actually, was it his daughter or his sister? No, Donald Trump killed the same person that Obama killed, his immediate family members. I think both are wrong. I think it's completely unacceptable. The difference between me and Tim is that he thinks it's acceptable. I guess he thinks it's acceptable or doesn't know that Trump did it.
going to be a civil war or that there's a big potential for it. You don't see, there's no difference between Trump and Harris as to.
Trump assassinated, daughter of Anwar al-Awlaki, reported killed in Yemen raid. Nawar Anwar al-Awlaki, the 8-year-old daughter of former al-Qaeda and the Arabian Peninsula leader Anwar al-Awlaki, was killed in a joint American UAE raid against the terror group on Sunday, according to the girl's family. Anwar al-Awlaki was a U.S.-born cleric who directed attacks against the U.S., was killed in a targeted drone strike in 2011. In that first drone strike, Barack Obama killed his son. Donald Trump then did another targeted strike where Donald Trump killed the daughter. I don't know why you guys thought I meant like Trump killed his own sister. I guess I said it stupidly. Anyway.
To the likelihood of a civil war or who would start this war. You don't, there's
In
just.
2020, Democrats held a war game as reported by the Boston Globe. Are you familiar with this? Where Podesta and others, neocons, had come together.
In 2020.
Before the 2020 election, they held a war game, as reported by the New York Times and the Boston Globe, where they said in the event the event Trump wins, we should advocate for West Coast states to secede from the Union.
In 2020.
Yes. In 2020, before the election took place, a war game was held by prominent neoconservatives and Democrats, including John Podesta.
Oh, so you mean like a bunch of people who are out of government went into a room and
working on the campaign and said, what happens if Trump wins? And one of the proposals was Washington, Oregon, and California must secede from the Union unless Trump's government capitulates to our demands.
This is one of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard in this conversation.
And that was just the most insane thing I'd ever heard.
They're not just going through a bunch of different people out of government are just going around. So your argument.
You say out of government, but campaigning for the office of the presidency is a big difference, right? Podesta is a big shot in the Democratic Party. It's not like he's not in power. These are private organizations, Republican or Democrat. The issue I'm saying is this. By all means, tell me I'm wrong. Believe all of it. But
I just think it's fascinating you don't have an opinion on this.
Well, because I hear you, and
I mean, you have this knowledge that some Democrats who are out of power.
You keep saying that, but John Podesta is far from out of power.
Well, I mean, in 2020, he wasn't in the government.
He's a big shot in the Democratic Party, and he's basically has a lot of say in who gets to run and who doesn't, and where funding comes from.
Okay, he had power within the Democratic Party, but people
And
who
he's saying if Trump wins, we will.
Well, wait, did Panetta say this, or this just there's like 14 different scenarios that are being gamed out, and because they're doing the war game, this is one of them that happens in this sort of completely hypothetical thing.
Why?
I mean,
But why do you think they entertained the possibility of West Coast secession? Like that's just stupid, isn't it?
Well, I mean,
it's a stupid thing for them to do.
I listen. Donald Trump had states competing over PPE during COVID. He completely abandoned this country at a time where there was.
The Transition Integrity Project was initially organized in late 2019 by Rosa Brooks, a law professor at Georgetown, former Pentagon senior official. Peaceful presidential transitions are seen as a hallmark of the Republican Party. Trump's own statements have fueled concerns about the peaceful transition of power. So they were trying to build a contingency plan specifically against Donald Trump. Like refusing to do a peaceful transition of power. Like, what could they do hypothetically? Like, they got together and they were like, what could we possibly do hypothetically to ensure that Donald Trump, does a peaceful transfer of power? Am I wrong? Isn't that what this is? Yeah, it's like, he's not wrong, dude. One of my D&D campaigns was a replay of the 2020 election, and it ended with all citizens being trans. These are also, most of these guys are right-wing too, which is kind of funny. Like the people that, it was like Bill Kristol, Max Boot, David Frum. I wonder, like, we got a bunch of fucking neocons who were like genuinely terrified about the future of American democracy because it'll, take away their toy. Good thing most of those guys are now completely firmly within the Democratic Party and have captured the Democratic Party entirely. So,
was a once in a lifetime crisis. And
what if Trump steals the election?
To the extent that if Trump steals the election,
what do you think would happen?
What do you mean by steal?
Let's say that Kamala Harris wins the popular. Here's a scenario that's playing out right now. Mississippi had a lawsuit. Fifth Circuit Court ruled that ballots received after Election Day, even if postmarked before, are illegal to count. This would have to go to the Supreme Court for final adjudication. But one scenario that is potential because of this is that Donald Trump is winning on Election Day. However, mail-in votes have yet to be counted, of course. This is what happened in 2020. Then, when those votes come in, Republicans sue, going to the Supreme Court, which you believe is right-leaning, and the Supreme Court says...
Wait. I believe it's right-leaning?
Do
you not believe it's right-leaning?
I'm not making a point about my or your belief. I'm saying...
You said you believe it's right-leaning. Really? It's right-leaning.
And I will say, as you have stated, the court is right-leaning, okay?
Thank you.
So my point is this. If Kamala Harris is losing on Election Day, but it is perceived that she will win when mail-in ballots come in the following day, but the Republicans sue, citing the Fifth Circuit Court. It goes to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court rules all of those votes for Kamala, which would give her the win, are out. Trump is now the president, despite losing the popular vote and the Electoral College. What do you think happens?
Well, we have a model for this. It was the year 2000, where all of the legal establishment was shocked that the Supreme Court intervened and prevented Florida from counting all the votes. And to the extent that we, past performance is no guarantee of future performance, but...
Al Jazeera Arabic breaking news. Pentagon deploying ballistic missile defense destroyers, fighters, tankers, and long-range bombers to the Middle East. Joe Biden has to be a sleeper for Trump, I swear to God. So B-52 bombers are, the big Monty. They what's the saying? If you see a B-52 bomber, don't worry, you're not the target. I mean, I think there are a smaller, or no, that's the B-2 bomber. No, not B-52, sorry. B-52 is still Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin ordered the deployment of additional ballistic missile defense destroyers, fighter squadron, and tanker aircraft, and several U.S. Air Force B-52 long-range missile bombers of the Middle East, the Pentagon said. These forces will begin to arrive in coming months as the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group prepares to depart. I guess it is a response to the Israeli intelligence suggests Iran is preparing to attack Israel from Iraqi territory in the coming days, possibly before the U.S. presidential election, two Israeli sources tell me. I didn't realize when Elan News sent this in, I didn't realize it was Israeli sources claiming that. I thought it was actually Iranian sources saying that because they usually spell out their potential targets ahead of time. So if it's Israeli sources, then this might be something different. Nothing burger. There will not be strategic bombers flying over Iran. These things are about as vulnerable to air defenses as can be. Posturing and training rotation. B-2s are the real thing. And they fly out of USA, not the Middle East. B-52s are not really used against people who don't herd goats. I saw that my uncles are fighting after this combo. I know. It hurts my feelings.
The Democrats basically stood down.
Do you think Democrats would just stand down and let Trump come in?
I think I would be surprised if there weren't like a massive protests, and I think we would see states attempt to get more progressive and become more sustainable and not rely on the federal government as much. Yeah.
What if Trump sends in the military to start rounding up illegal immigrants?
Oh, I think that's going to be really, really ugly. In addition to being like a
You think if
horrible
troops are
thing
putting
for our
people on
economy.
buses and trains, the Democrats will just stand by and say this is
I mean, if the Supreme Court basically says it's okay to deploy the military in the United States, I think that could be a problem. Now, you've just given me that scenario. Would you imagine Kamala Harris doing the same thing? Do you think that she would send the military to deport 11 million people?
No. She said she wants to recently. She said people who enter illegally will be quickly and immediately removed.
Oh, I was still on the political violence thing. I thought she did say that. Tim is right on this.
I think.
Well, of that 11 million people, 80% of them have been here for over 10 years. So, so how is it where you can so easily work up a scenario
where Donald Trump
instigates a civil war, but you can't with Kamala Harris, that you think they're the same?
Why did you say I couldn't?
All right, well, give me one.
So first of all, I don't really put a lot of weight on Kamala Harris. Right? She wasn't elected. The Democrats voted for her, so she was.
Well, I mean, it's either going to be her or Donald Trump as the president.
But so with Trump in office, Trump is screaming at the top of his lungs, telling people what to do. With Kamala in office, she's surrounded by intelligence officials, military officers, and what we've seen thus far is the arrest of lawyers. The arrest of
lawyers.
Donald Trump's lawyers were arrested
for.
What's her face?
Wait, is he talking about like? Yeah, Donald Trump's lawyers have also literally distanced themselves from Donald Trump because they almost got caught. Is he talking about Sidney Powell? Please tell me you're not talking about Sidney Powell. That'd be pretty funny. Or Rudy Giuliani. Donald Trump's own personal lawyers in the classified documents with obstruction of justice case literally had to recuse themselves and actually stop being his lawyers because Donald Trump was trying to use them to hide documentation, to hide classified documents after the state had already figured out that he had classified documents, and he was just lying to them for no fucking reason. So this doesn't mean anything. It just means that like Donald Trump does often try to use his own fucking lawyers to do illegal shit, which of course there is a limitation to the attorney-client privilege. Like, you can't. Donald Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, literally went to jail. You can't use your lawyers to do crime, dude. That doesn't mean that the state is wrong.
Jenna Ellis, was that her name? She got charged with RICO for simply being Trump's lawyer.
Really? That's a. Did it hold up in court?
She ended up. I think she pleaded guilty. She ended up crying on TV, apologizing for having done it.
Yeah, now she's like anti-Trump too, isn't she? Am I crazy? Wasn't I on a fucking panel with this lady? By the way, I just realized I've been in direct contact with not one but two of Donald Trump's former lawyers that got into legal trouble because of their dealings with Donald Trump, which is wild. You know? Why does he have so many fucking lawyers that are constantly getting into legal trouble? He's burning through them.
They included her in RICO because she filed paperwork on Trump's behalf for his election claims.
Oh, because she knew they were false.
No, I don't think that was what she was charged with. She was charged with RICO counts 1 and 2, which was participating in
a conspiracy to defraud the United States.
And so the issue then becomes, if you're a lawyer and you are retained by someone who says, here's the argument I want to make, and you go, okay, then they criminally charge you for it. That's a huge step over the line.
Well, if you're involved in fraud, then yes, that's always been the case.
If you're not,
is this the first time that a lawyer has ever been subjected to something like that in a fraud case like that?
Not sure, but it's other lawyers that got charged too in Wisconsin. So it's you know what? By all means, Sam.
Wait. But
go ahead and tell them she deserves it. Say she deserves it.
She deserves it.
Okay, now, what do you think Trump supporters will respond with when they see Trump's lawyers, former staffers, Navarro, Bannon being put in prison?
Certainly, supporters don't like, people being going to jail. But I mean,
why didn't Merrick Garland go to jail for contempt of Congress?
Why didn't?
Dude, what an insane fucking line of reasoning. Does Tim Pool not realize that a lawyer cannot legally participate in a crime? Does Tim Pool think that when you're a lawyer, that means you're like above the law? Does Tim Pool think that if you have a lawyer that you have retained, you can get them to do whatever you want and they have to agree to it, even if it's a direct crime? Did this motherfucker not watch Saul Goodman? Like, did he not watch Better Call Saul? You know what happens, right? Did you not watch the last season? Here's the fault with Sam's prior SCOTUS argument right there. And it's that SCOTUS can say what Trump is doing is unconstitutional. Trump can just do it anyway. And there's nothing anyone can do because it's within his official duties, citing national security concerns. If he starts rounding people up and deporting and offing them, there's nothing the system can do. No, that's not true. Attorney-client privilege? No, the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court has given additional allowances to the president, but that doesn't mean that the president is like above prosecution no matter what. It just means that there is an additional safeguard for a president to do crimes and claim that it is a presidential act. That doesn't mean that a president could just like shoot someone in the head and then get away with it. There would still be you would still have to take it back up to the Supreme Court to be like, is this a presidential act or was this not a presidential act? Previously, you didn't have to make that assessment. You were like, that's illegal. You're going to jail. But the Supreme Court made it so that they were basically the final check against, if they want to, the final line of defense that determines whether or not this is a prosecutable act or not. Anyway.
He go to jail for contempt of Congress?
Yeah.
What you mean from the Justice Department?
Yeah, was it the her investigation or was it I'm getting the name wrong? He was held in contempt of Congress, I think, twice.
There's been a lot of people who've been held in contempt of Congress that haven't gone to prison.
So the issue right now is Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon go, and when Merrick Garland defies Congress, he does not.
I think government
by all
officials
means-
probably get away with this more because we had we had members of Congress who also.
That is a fine argument.
But wait,
And it's a fine argument. But
we're
do you
getting
think,
off the original question was.
and the question is, do you
do
think
you
Trump supporters
perceive-
are going to accept this as true, that it's just government officials getting...
I don't know. I've seen Trump supporters believe a lot of very strange things, like John F. Kennedy is in the
I'm sure this has happened, but in recent history, I can't think of a single fucking Republican or Democrat or any like person that holds office that has ever been prosecuted in contempt of court for being in contempt of Congress. Like, I don't think has that happened like to a I can't remember. I'm sure there might be. And I'm certain that it's probably happened throughout history, but I don't think that it's happened in recent times. Like, Steve Bannon is not a elected representative, chat, or even like an appointed person. Steve Bannon is a fucking random nut job. What do you mean, Steve Bannon? And also, we're talking about contempt of Congress. That's what Tim Pool brought up. Tim Pool brought up contempt of Congress. Like, why is Merrick Garland not in prison for being in contempt of Congress? Like, as in not showing up to a congressional hearing.
Junior is in the audience.
That is,
at
yeah, the
Trump
magazine.
rally. Yeah, I mean, so I have no idea how to predict. But again, the question I ask: do you think can you come up with a scenario where Harris instigates a civil war in the way that you talked about with Trump doing it?
The Harris administration, yes.
Okay, and let me hear it.
The expansive arrest and prosecution of Donald Trump, his supporters, and those associated with his movement.
Well, the Bannon went.
I'm gonna say something controversial. I'm gonna say something controversial here and say that Tim Pool, I think, was able to successfully gish gallop his way out of giving Sam some good dunks. Like, I think Sam was too nice to him. And because of that, it just comes across as like a 3-hour conversation that I think if Tim like showed some more energy on instead of being nice, I think Sam would have fucking slammed him up and gummed up the works and packed him up in like 15 minutes. Keep watching. The energy flips at a point. Where does the energy flip?
This is going to come from the right. Verse
Because this is still, they're still talking about this shit.
15% benefits. But it's not necessarily younger people are going to have to pay money.
New workers will have to.
No. They're always going to have to pay, hopefully, with Social Security, unless the Republicans have their ability to cut it. But
Oh, you're right. It actually says 83%. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would put some things to rest. I don't think they're going to do that. I mean,
Trump is saying it should be a state's issue, and I believe that is absolutely incorrect.
no, I think we had an individual right that existed in this country for 50 years, and it was rolled back. We've never had anything like that whatsoever. I think it's a right that when taken away, deprives people who have babies their sovereignty over their own body, and it's both an economic issue and a personal liberty issue.
What do you think there should be restrictions
On abortion?
Yeah.
I mean, the problem with restrictions, like for instance,
This is the normal response to this is no. But the optically best possible response to this is not a no. Because when you say no to no, like when you say no to that question, I know a lot of women are going to get mad. But when you say no to that question, immediately you have to remember that like the fucking worst idiots will go, oh, you want to have a fun abortion on the last trimester. So you have to be careful in the way that you communicate. If your goal is to be, if your goal is to change the minds of a lot of people, okay? There is no such thing as a fun abortion, right? Like, people are not just voluntarily getting an abortion after carrying a pregnancy almost to term, because the process in which you carry a pregnancy is also very complicated and can cause a lot of harm to the carrier, okay? So it makes no fucking sense for people to basically almost carry a pregnancy to term and then get an abortion for funsies in the last trimester. Republicans present it as though that is happening all the fucking time. So the answer to that is when someone says no restrictions on abortion, the best optical answer is that these decisions should be left to the medical professionals and the medical community, and that the government should not intervene in this process. You do not have a say in whether or not people get insulin if they have diabetes. That is left to the doctors. So you should not have a say in this process as well, because the abortion, a medically induced miscarriage, an abortion is a medical procedure. Okay? That's it. So that is the best possible way to respond to it. And I'm sure Sam will do that as well.
Say only in the case of, let's say, a danger to a woman, or a woman's life, is that is extremely difficult to assess where that line is. And we've seen this. 2 women have died at least in Texas as a function of the abortion ban that they have there. We also know that infant mortality in the wake of the Texas thing, because there's been studies on this, increased 15% in the wake of the abortion ban there. So in general, I would say that restrictions are in practice not viable, not doable, because you end up costing women their lives. I think that to the extent that I would have restrictions, I think you need a medical provider to provide abortions, that go past the maybe midway through the second trimester.
Do you think that with elective abortion should be available up to 9 months?
If it is I think that is the safest route for women if it is done by a medical provider. Yeah.
Elective. I asked elective, to be clear.
Elective.
Meaning no reason given, no medical issues, just a woman saying, you know what, I've
carried this baby for 8.5 months and I've changed my mind.
Well, that's a little crass way of putting it. I think some women are going through some serious crises in their lives, and they may make a decision that's a bit more than just they've changed their mind. Like, for instance, where a woman is being battered by her husband, and then she realizes at month 6 that if she has this kid, he's going to continue to beat and harm the child, and she can't stay with him or something.
Well, I think, I'm not going to assess people's reasons for having an abortion. It's not really my business. But I think that having restrictions ends up.
But morally speaking, just because the innovation is now easily accessible and available, does it make the act right? Yes. In regards to the morality, just because innovation is improved to the point that it is easily accessible and possible, does it mean the act is right? Yes. Yes. The answer is absolutely yes. What do you mean? What is the counter argument against this? Moving with the times? What are you saying? I treat abortions, medically induced miscarriages, in the same exact way that I treat any other medical procedure. I think that the medical innovation in this field is completely and utterly irrelevant. And I think that this decision should be left to the healthcare professionals and the patient themselves. I'm saying that diabetes and abortion are 2 different things. I'm saying that that's not correct. It's up to you to tell me why it's a different thing. They are both medical procedures that save the life of the carrier. that save the life of the person. Like it's medical intervention that professionals have decided is the appropriate response. Not only is it that in circumstances most things are allowed, so yeah, you're right. Wait, what? Okay, so what, you conceded? I don't understand. All right, I guess cool. I don't know what you're arguing against. You just said I'm right, I think.
Costing women's lives, and so I would, on balance, not have restrictions outside of like obviously like particularly as you get further into the pregnancy, requirements about medical certified medical providers.
So let's say you have a scenario: a woman goes to a Planned Parenthood, 6 months pregnant, and she just says, "I don't want to explain it. I just would like to get an abortion." Is that a?
Can we leave diabetics out of this nonsense? Why? What are you scared that the Republicans are going to start fucking denying you insulin? No, I think it's a perfectly apt and appropriate fucking like analogy in this circumstance. It's just like a readily accepted, have been for years. Okay, fair. We're not talking about fucking lack of Medicare for all or how expensive insulin is. We're talking about like we're talking about straight up like one party deciding like insulin is unconscionable, insulin is ungodly.
She should be allowed. There should be just medical professionals who say we're going to do it. We're not going to ask you why.
I think I think it's okay to.
Like the answer to this is there's already restrictions to third trimester abortions in almost every single state, and that is because it is a medically invasive procedure, and it's a risky procedure as a matter of fact, and that is precisely the reason why you can't just you can't do an over-the-counter third trimester abortion. There is a lot of visits to the doctor leading up to this decision. And it's ridiculous. It's no different than hormone replacement therapy. Like Republicans act like you can just walk to your nearest pharmacy and just be like, testosterone now, please, or estrogen now, please. And then they're like, oh, I'm too woke. I have to give it to you. Like, that's not how that works. You know what I mean? It's very stupid. You're just arguing against the reality that does not exist, right? Dude calling me conceited. Conceit, though you are well-spoken, don't get it twisted. Dude calling me conceited, arrogant. You can't just name call dick. No, dude, I said you conceded. I didn't say like concede, to concede. Like you agreed with me, so I don't know why we should argue any further. You said I am right. What the fuck? Dude, oh my God, my fucking haters, man. What is happening, bro? What is that? Open the schools. Open the schools. Abolish homeschooling. Open the schools. We need to leave children behind. Okay, the No Child Left Behind policy failed. Okay, we need to leave children behind. Like we need to keep them getting the education. Oh my God.
To explore it and get a sense, as you would for any type of like medical procedure.
What does that mean? Like,
I think that there's an obligation within the context of like ethical practice of medicine to
not just terminate a baby at 6 months without reason.
Well, no, I'm not saying that they should adjudicate this, but I don't think that like necessarily medical providers are going to be just like, hop up here, we'll just do this right now. I mean, I think there are procedures in which they do it, but essentially as long as it's like sort of like, they're following, medical procedures, like I don't think that somebody can, walk in here at 6 months and say to you, like, can you get rid of my baby? And you're allowed to do it.
No, but like, I'm just asking, like, should there be a time limit, like 16 weeks?
I think that is, that endangers women too much. So the answer is no. I don't believe so.
Yes. any additional regulation or restriction brought about by the state endangers the life of the carrier that is making a oftentimes complicated medical decision with a medical provider. Okay? It's that simple. You are putting people's lives on the line for no fucking reason other than winning political brownie points with a tiny group of people that are very, very strong and overrepresented in the Republican Party's base of support. That's it. The overwhelming majority of Americans do not agree to this. So much so that state by state, they have refused to go along with these restrictions. They voted against these restrictions. They voted to preserve and protect at least Roe v. Wade in virtually every state where it's been on a ballot measure. Can speak from experience as the wife and I have been trying to have care after our miscarriage, and it's going on 2 months of doctor following laws and regulations. This was at 8 weeks and we still can't move on with our lives. Yeah. Being pro-life is the biggest virtue signaling group on the planet. Yeah, I mean, they're not pro-life. They're pro-forcing women to carry pregnancy is the term. They are anti-choice. They're not pro-life. They are anti-choice. Because if they were pro-life, there is a whole litany of different things that they'd be advocating for, like gun control, for example. Like, the average Republican is certainly not pro-life. They're pro-death more than they're pro-life. Let's be real. You got owned in the marketplace of delusion. It's true. I did.
So, but that would create a circumstance, be it as rare as, you know, it may be, but where there's like an 8-month abortion.
It's conceivable. I mean, certainly in the 8th or 9th month. I mean, here's the thing. In the 8th or 9th month, you can, you may find that.
Like, the overwhelming majority of third trimester abortions are being done, like damn near every single one are being done to people that have already chosen the fucking like baby crib. You know what I mean? To people that have already, to couples or to parents that have already like decided on a name for the child. This is a medical intervention. It is a medical necessity. Okay. And it is an invasive surgery. It is an invasive surgical procedure. Okay. 90% of abortions happen in the first trimester, and it's as uncomplicated as taking a pill. Okay? It's much simpler than you would think. But in the extreme rare instances of a third trimester abortion, I can't begin to explain to you how fucking rare this is. All right? This is a already psychologically traumatic experience because in virtually every single one of those cases, they want to carry the pregnancy to term. So you're basically shutting off or adding unnecessary complications to a family that have wanted to have the child, okay, and now can't have the child for one reason or another, usually some serious harm to the fucking carrier or it's like stillbirth or some shit like that, okay? And they're trying to get this medical procedure, and now Republicans are like, sorry, we've decided, like, you can't do that. Okay, now you're fucking killing the carrier. You're killing a woman. Okay? Why are they so obsessed with abortion? I'm from outside the U.S. Is it to make sure the white population does not reduce? I think a lot of it has to do with controlling what women can and can't do. I think it's like a way to try and like punish women into behaving in a more like tradcath way of life, you know, only have sex to procreate, like do not have recreational sex, that type of shit. America is very puritanical, you know. That's what it is. Hold on. Isn't it weird we have to debate about whether certain medical practices should be allowed just based on vibes? Yes, it is weird. It is fucking weird. It's really, really weird to me, at least. Like, Rainy draws a lot. Thank you for the 25 subs. I don't understand it. I think it is, to me, there is virtually no difference than like Republicans being like, oh, we've decided we're all Christian medicalists now. You know what I'm talking about? Like Christian scientists, Christian medicalists that believe that you need to pray every fucking ailment away. Like if you have an illness, you just pray it away. You can't do like real medical intervention. And they've just like, if the 30% evangelical base within the Republican Party just like decided to lean in that direction, and then the Republican Party responded by nationalizing a Christian medicalist approach, and then started genuinely stopping the process of just like doctors operating. That is what this is. And it sounds fucking insane when I, make an analogy like this, but that is what's happening with abortion. That's what's happening with fucking trans care. Like that's literally what is going on. It's all about enforcing a certain standard of life that 30% of the nation, many of which don't even fucking uphold themselves, but like 30% of the nation wants to enforce upon the rest of the country. And it's very, very insane. It's very conservative, it's very reactionary, it's very stupid, but it doesn't matter because, the Democrats have to concede the Republicans, and the Republicans love conceding to the most primal, most barbaric nature of the most active base of support. We are held hostage by some of the fucking craziest people in this country. Yeah, 0.02% of all abortions happen in the third trimester. That's 1 in 5,000. And in those final 13 weeks, it just becomes more and more rare because, like you said, at that point, people want to carry the child to term. Yes.
The child is going to not be viable.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about elective. Like I'm specifically trying to ask about that.
But here's the danger, though. Like, and this is what I'm talking about. Why you have women who have died in Texas, and there's probably a lot more that we're not aware of, is that imposing these restrictions is not like there's no like bulb that shows up when you say this child is
One thing about Kamala is I will never believe a male politician really gives a fuck personally about abortion, but I do believe her. I mean, the most famous female politician that ran on this issue was Hillary Rodham Clinton, and her fucking statements were also far more conservative than the average person. Last time he spoke about this abortion, there was a group on Twitter that shared this information packet, and I thought it was really helpful too, just FYI. Okay, I'm not going to
100% not viable, or that your life is 100% not threatened. Like, where's the threshold? Is it at 20%? If the woman's life is in jeopardy, it's 20%. And this is, a vague, a doctor doesn't have like some meter that they put on the woman and say, oh, okay, your life is at 20%. No, these are vague determinations. And when you impose these type of restrictions on, what invariably happens is women die, because in real life, not hypothetical world, in real life, the doctors are afraid of crossing a threshold where they could get imprisoned, or they could lose their license, or, conceivably the woman might too. And so I leave it up to a doctor and the patient. I don't know what constitutes even elective. Like, is it elective if there's a 20% chance I'm going to die?
No.
That's not elective.
It's not elective.
What about 5%?
That's not elective.
What about 1%?
Wait, what? Okay, so Tim Pool wants unrestricted abortions because the likelihood that you will die while giving birth is higher than 5%.
Not elective.
Okay.
If it's, what's the percentage? Does he not realize that, oh my God, Tim Pool is so fucking devoid of pussy that he does not understand this? Like, dog, how have you never thought about this? Oh my God. Oh my fucking God. You just agreed with Sam that there is no, oh my God. Dog, he literally got someone pregnant before you. I impregnated half of this chat's mothers, okay? Calm down.
we know that
Elective is usually used to describe
0.5%.
I've decided I don't want the baby anymore.
Because we know that, there's always a danger of a woman dying in childbirth, and it's above zero.
In 2022, the maternal mortality rate in the United States was 22.3 deaths per 100,000 live births. It's not 5%. Okay, well, now you're saying it's 33 deaths per 100,000 births. Okay. Okay, it's less than 1%. Well, still above zero. There you go. 33 was from 2021. One in 20 women dying from childbirth would be crazy, but above 0% is still a risk. Tim is still saying if it's above 0%, it's not elective. By the way, that doesn't even matter because the real point of contention here is not the risk of a carrier dying during childbirth. Because as we've stated time and time again, the risk is bodily harm to the carrier in the third trimester. Someone getting an elective abortion in the third trimester is not getting it because they want to have it for fun. They wanted to see what it would feel like to carry a pregnancy to term and then fucking abort the fetus.
So where?
Oh, come on.
No,
We're trying to be reasonable, right? We want to solve the problem. We don't want to just say,
What's the problem?
Geez. There are conservatives who believe that if the baby is, well, for many, I don't even believe in IVF because even a fertilized, embryo is life.
What's the problem? I understand
I bet it feels good as fuck for at least a second. No, I don't think it does.
that there are
Problem is
religious
the
people who
distinction
don't like what I do, but what's the problem?
The death of a baby.
Well, I would contend that we're talking about the death of a fetus. And
So the issue is whether someone determines personhood or not is a legal constitutional question that needs to be answered. For instance, in Civil War, they didn't think black people were humans who had civil rights, and that's
Oh my God, bro. See, this is like the vegan trope, Like immediately, it's like, well, we don't consider black people to be people during the period of the Civil War. What if it's the same thing for the fetuses?
clearly the psychotic way to view the world. But you holding the view that an unborn child is or is not an individual who holds a view, whether they are or not, is an unanswered question at the Supreme Court level that I believe sooner or later will be answered. And they may make a determination that...
No, it will not be. The moment that it's answered in the direction that Republicans want it to be answered, society collapses. What, we just start offering fucking Social Security to fetuses in the womb? Like what? What if they don't make it? I think the other part of this story, and it's especially shocking to have this conversation in the aftermath of Roe v. Wade going away, is how you prosecute it. If you criminalize abortions, then what do? You have to criminalize pregnancy. You cannot criminalize abortion without criminalizing pregnancies. As in, you have to heavily regulate, heavily monitor every single person that's pregnant. You have to, for example, in this process, a pregnant mother that drinks a sip of wine, because you don't know how much wine they've consumed, is technically, in the eyes of the law, are they putting the fetus at risk? Are they putting the life at risk? If they are mowing the front lawn, should they get arrested? Ironic, of course, because the process in which you arrest someone physically and then forcibly detain them is quite traumatic, and therefore you're putting the fucking life at even more risk. What's next? You're going to fucking chain them to force them to carry the pregnancy to term in jail, chained up? You would need a team of prosecutors to fucking investigate every single miscarriage, which has happened, by the way, in this country. And the problem still remains. The fetus and its viability is left to the carrier. The fetus cannot live outside of the womb, especially up until the end of the second trimester, I believe, right? So what that means is that every single miscarriage, every single one has to be prosecuted like a death. Every single one. It's ridiculous. Small government, by the way. Small government conservatives, by the way.
That the unborn are persons who are.
What do you think?
Man, that's tough. I tend to be traditionally pro-choice. I think that when you have
then the argument is null and void. Okay, it's quite simple, I think.
Do you think there should be restrictions on abortion?
100%.
What should those restrictions be?
Time limit for sure, but I don't know. I'm not smart enough to give you a certain amount of time.
But here's the problem: is that when you in practice, that time limit ends up killing women.
Well, you've got a dying baby or a dying woman, and we're trying to figure out how to save them both.
Well, I mean,
restrictions are if the baby can survive, why kill it?
So you're saying viability. So
viability is huge, and medical technology is rapidly expanding that. But there's still a lot of questions in how we handle it. So my position is that the government can't mandate one person provide their body to another person. However, if a person provides consent in the initial phase, now they have an obligation for a certain time period. So
if you have sex and you get pregnant, you are obligated to carry that baby to term. Is that what you're saying?
I think that I'd be in favor of abortion up to a certain point.
Well, but I don't understand what the logic is there.
Logic is compromise.
Oh, so this is just a question of splitting the baby in half, literally.
Not literally splitting the baby in half. It is, can the government tell someone you must provide your body and blood to another person?
And you say they can
up
to a certain point.
The questions of consent play a role in whether you allow someone and then have an obligation to them based on the requirement. So, for instance, like rape, I 100% exception. Health of the mother.
Okay.
Why? That's still a life. Why? Health of the mother. That's still a life. Why? If you believe that life begins at conception, and I can't tell if Tim believes that or not, but he's making an argument as though he does. So if it's at the point of viability, there's no... Because the rape exception is so stupid because that's not a real thing, okay? We already have untested rape kits. There's a massive backlog of untested rape kits in this country. But beyond that, the prosecutorial aspect would take so long, far longer than it takes to carry a pregnancy to fucking term. So if you were to leave it to the legal system to determine if a rape happened already or not, it's far too late at that point. You've already forced someone to carry a pregnancy to term. And also, if you personally are a firm, committed believer that life begins at conception, then it doesn't matter. You cannot argue for a rape exception. You can't. Because that's still a life. You're still killing someone. You're just saying like, oh, I guess some murders are valid. Is that what your argument is? And if you think some murders are valid, then why not make that exception to virtually every murder at any point, especially considering the viability of the pregnancy or the carrier's life?
100%.
So let's take rape.
Yeah. The woman can choose.
Okay. What establishes rape?
When a person does not consent.
Okay.
Great. Sam is going to walk him through the long and convoluted legal process in which determining a rape would take far longer than carrying a pregnancy to term.
How rape is a criminal term, right?
Yes, indeed.
So you need to go through the court case.
Perhaps.
What do you mean perhaps?
Well,
like, can I come in and say I was raped and that's it. All I need to do is say I was raped.
Nope.
Okay. So you need to have a court case.
No, I didn't say that either. There would have to be some degree of
Well, you keep
adjudication.
telling me what you're not saying, but why don't you just say what you're saying? How do you
No,
establish?
you got to calm down.
No, well, how do you establish what if rape has taken place or not?
So there's rape kits, right? And we can check for abrasions. And a woman who was raped certainly would want to get a rape kit done, I'd imagine.
Well, okay. First of all,
But if you're
there's-
asking-
we know for a fact
if you're
that a
asking
lot of
for-
hold on, we know for a fact that a lot of women don't seek rape kits for whatever reason because
too
they're
bad.
afraid to. Okay, so if you don't get a rape kit,
We have responsibilities to ourselves and to others. And sometimes those choices are very difficult to make.
so
If
just
we're
the
talking
existence
about-
of a rape kit will establish that rape has happened. Why do we need court cases to establish that rape has
I
happened?
didn't say we did. I said no.
Okay, so
So a medical professional a professional who assesses that a rape has occurred, I believe, is
what if they go in
largely
too many
sufficient.
days after to get a rape kit?
And then there's no evidence of a rape taking place?
Yeah.
That would be a restriction.
Okay, so who makes that adjudication?
If a rape took place,
Yeah.
the person administering the rape kit.
So we would put rape kit people who are administering this and look at the evidence. And do you think it's just like completely binary? Do you think like when you get a rape kit, like this person has definitely been raped or this person has definitely not been raped?
I think that we're dealing with something outside of the simplicity of I can go to court. It takes 6 months to a year to figure something out, which means there's a compromise. How can we come to the best determination to make sure that women are not lying, which I assume would be exceedingly rare, and we're actually going after the criminals? I do not think it's fair to put the burden on someone to perform an abortion without actually taking the responsibility of yourself and saying, look, victims have responsibilities. And it's unfortunate that they're victims, but we're trying our best.
So if you
there's-
don't go, so let's say for instance, like, I mean, I don't know if you've ever, and spent any time exploring the psychological and the sort of like social pressures on people to report rape. I mean, but you're basically saying that if you don't go and get a rape kit,
If you think that Tim Pool's statement about how rape victims have a responsibility, a duty to come out and like place the emphasis on the victim of this heinous crime is shocking, I urge you to revisit why this conversation is even taking place. It's not that crazy for Tim Pool to make that leap when the underlying premise of his argument is that he wants to create unnecessary hurdles that get in the way of women's bodily autonomy. And this is not me being like a pussy male feminist. Like, that's just straightforward. That is what it is. You have a disagreement that no medical professional agrees with. You have a disagreement with the entirety of the medical healthcare community, the entirety of like researchers, medical researchers, academics that believe that this is a necessary medical intervention, a normal process, as normal as fucking insulin for a diabetic patient. You just simply disagree, and therefore you think women should not be allowed to get this process. Okay? My point is, the argument placing the emphasis on the victim in the duty of a victim to come out, the duty of a victim of rape to come out and report it is coming from the exact same place of people having a callous conversation surrounding women's bodily autonomy. It's victim blaming, but it comes from the same place of misogynistic sentiment.
it's contingent upon the police department to assess this rape kit. If you go too late,
Is that who's administering the rape kit?
yeah.
Yeah, this was also a fun little moment. Even after the arrest of a suspect, YouTuber Tim Pool calls the story of Ohio child rape victim a hoax. So I don't think he cares about it that much.
It's not a doctor.
No, I mean, they may have medical things.
Well,
but it's
I was talking
basically-
about a doctor. She goes to the doctor. She says, I've been raped. They do a kit and they say, okay. And then she says, I would not want to have a pregnancy from this.
Now,
And we say,
do you honestly, like, do you know how this works? It's not like it's preponderance of the evidence. I mean, it's like, so you're basically saying the doctor gets to decide.
I am. You don't think doctors should be able to decide to give a woman an abortion?
No, I think doctors can decide. Well,
Yes, doctors make healthcare decisions. Doctors cannot determine in the aftermath of a rape occurring whether or not that was a rape that occurred or not. Like, what are you talking about? And before you say rape kits, that's not what we're talking about in this situation. What if someone's a victim of rape that comes out months later and didn't get a fucking rape kit done? You know what I mean? What do you do then? Is the doctor supposed to behave like a fucking prosecutor on top of everything else and determine with accuracy? No doctor is going to also get their license revoked. No doctor is going to get their fucking license revoked by making the wrong choice on a potential 50-50 chance that this person actually got raped or not. What if it's determined after the fact that it was not a rape? In the instance where you have criminalized it, but you at least have some medical exemptions for rape. It just doesn't make any sense. The legal argument is precisely the reason why I always talk about I always talk about how there is no reason to have a philosophical conversation surrounding the sentience of a fucking fetus. Okay? Like determining personhood and things like that. These philosophical decisions are utterly irrelevant when we are legislating. Okay? When you are writing laws, these philosophical back and forths are just nonsensical. It is not the real point of contention. Okay? And the moment that you are having these philosophical back and forths, okay, you've already lost the argument. That's precisely the reason why so many anti-abortion advocates try to draw you into that conversation. Question for Hasan: how would you go about talking to someone who when asked if they'd steal food for their children, say they just moved to a safer neighborhood? I try to genuinely talk to people who espouse hateful comments to change their minds, but I get so angry when people can't bring themselves to empathize. I mean, there's not much you can do for someone who is just like so fucking selfish. Get ready for hell. Your chat, I promise you, is going to swing on this.
I think doctors are responsible.
This is a compromise. I'm pro-choice, but I recognize that we're not going to live in a society where one side's demanding an extreme, the other side's demanding the other.
So you
extreme.
think the rule should be if
You are doing the same mistake they're doing, drawing into the toxic conversation. You're being part of the problem. Shut the fuck up and change topic. Wait, what? I'm a political commentator. I'm telling 35,000 people the best tactics and what to avoid in the like common trappings that reactionaries apply in an effort to distract. This is a very productive discussion. This is a very productive discussion for many people who might not have encountered this conversation or have ever thought about it. Maybe they find themselves in the throes of an argument. The fuck? Are you
if
okay?
you get a
doctor makes
rape kit. What if it's somebody?
We're
who's
talking
like-
about edge cases. I
what if
mean, I
it's
don't know why you're
15?
getting so much into the edge cases.
Well, I mean,
how often does this even happen?
how often do people go in and get an abortion at 8.5 months because
Many.
they feel like it?
That's my point.
Yeah, very, very few.
Right. So why are you bringing it up?
Well, because the people who you would create restrictions are going to cause
Exceedingly rare and not even an issue.
So then, why would we have any restrictions whatsoever?
Because what do you mean? So that babies at 8 months don't have their lives ended?
Well, I mean, what if there are reasons for it? I mean,
that's then requiring adjudication. But it's so exceedingly rare. You're arguing an edge case for a dramatic change.
No, that's precisely why you don't legislate it, Tim. That's the whole point. That's the whole reason. Most states already have only medical exemption, and the ones that don't have it for this particular reason. You cannot get a fucking 8-month abortion that requires zero medical intervention, okay? That's not real. That is not a thing that happens. You have to go to a doctor. A doctor has to carry out this medical process. So legislating that away is idiotic because you have fantasized that women are fucking carrying a pregnancy for 8 months only to feel pregnant and then end it, terminate that pregnancy at the end of the fucking 9-month period for fun. That is insane. What the fuck are we doing? He was so close to getting the point, it's infuriating. Never assume that a right-wing commentator who gets paid to be a right-wing commentator is actually close to any fucking point whatsoever. I do not. Just so you know. If you're having a normal conversation with a friend of yours, you can make that assessment personally, right? Some are shitheads, and that's one thing. But most people, most normal people, you can have a normal conversation with on this issue. But someone like Tim Pool, you're not going to have a normal conversation. The reason why Sam is having this conversation with Tim Pool is not to convince Tim Pool. It's to maybe change the minds of some people in Tim Pool's audience.
Change in policy.
But
I'm not. I'm
it's
saying
not a dramatic change of policy. There are, I think, like
it's kind of
10
wild that I'm
states.
like, women should
There
be
are
able to get
10
abortions, but you're like, yes, but in these exceedingly rare circumstances.